is able to join us remotely and that the link is set up for the public. I'm getting a thumbs up. So it's my pleasure to begin this meeting of the Ocean Protection Council. Excited to be here with many important topics to discuss, to review, and to approve. And I would ask our colleagues to call the roll.
Chair Crowfoot.
Here.
Katie Landau.
Here.
Carl Larson.
Present.
Catherine Moore.
Here.
Julie Cravato. Alexis Jackson.
Here.
And Megan Rocha.
Here.
Excellent. Thank you all for your participation. And we'll get underway with opening remarks. And I invite other council members to share any opening remarks they have in just a moment. But I'll set the frame for our discussion today with a few updates. The first is that myself and some other members of Governor Newsom's administration were in Brazil recently for this United Nations Conference of Parties. This is the summit that takes place each year among virtually every state, every nation state in the world to advance the treaty, the global treaty that nations entered into to combat climate change. California is not a signatory to that treaty because we're not a nation, but we are one of many jurisdictions, regions, states, provinces, cities that participate in these summits, just given how much each of our governments is doing. We were thrilled to be joined by Governor Newsom for his first UN summit on climate change, where he really spoke in very strong terms around California's leadership, the continued responsibility that we all have, and the progress that we're making in California. Remarkably, the federal government of our country wasn't there, actually one of the only governments in the world not present in this discussion, but California, New Mexico, Wisconsin, New York, so many other American states were there to demonstrate the progress that we're making. Relevant to this discussion or this council, I'll share that Governor Newsom and our team had an opportunity to stop by the Ocean Pavilion at the COP, at the summit, which is a really great development of ocean-oriented organizations, including Scripps Institute of Oceanography and our UC and CSU system. And actually, Governor Newsom had a chance to meet some of the students from California that were at the Ocean Pavilion. This physical presence at the summit is all about lifting up the profile of oceans, both as a part of our Earth that's been heavily impacted by climate change, but also a place of a lot of opportunities for combating climate change. I'll also share that we have been very outspoken over a recent proposal from the federal government to expand offshore oil drilling off the coast of California. Governor Newsom, actually, that news broke when we were in Brazil, and he basically explained that that would happen, I think the quote was, over our dead bodies. And so our administration, with the California congressional delegation, and so many local governments and community organizations and coastal communities, has made very clear that that is an unwelcome proposal in California, as it is in places like Florida and North Carolina that were excluded from the proposal, and that California will be fighting back in a very clear way against this misguided proposal. We have a lot of work to do at the council today. We will be reviewing and hopefully approving an updated strategic plan, which are really the constellation, the North Stars that are guiding the work of the OPC. We're going to consider funding our colleagues at the Ocean Science Trust as our science advisor and the secretariat of the science advisory team. Believe it or not, we're now in our 7th round of SB1, or Senate Bill 1, Sea Level Rise Adaptation Grant Program, which is really important towards helping coastal communities build their resilience to sea level rise and coastal impacts of climate change. And then funding to advance offshore wind research and monitoring, which Director Eckerle and I were speaking about this morning. We're also going to receive 3 informational presentations, always really important. One is by an OPC grant recipient, Save the Waves Coalition, on the cost of climate change to California's recreation and our economy, specifically surfing. And then 2 presentations on the implementation progress of OPC's first ever equity plan and tribal engagement strategy. As always, we invite public comment, a really important part of our meetings, and we'll be taking public comment after items 4 through 9. And then we have item 10 as an opportunity to provide public comment on any item not specifically focused on within our agenda. We'll invite public comment after each of these items. If you're here at the meeting here in Sacramento at the Natural Resources Agency headquarters, please just simply line up by the podium at the end of the staff presentation. We always try to take public comment first before we discuss and consider items. For those who are joining by Zoom, you can raise your virtual hand with that button on your screen during the item you wish to speak, and our team will unmute you, announce your name, and then you'll be able to provide your comment. We also enable people to provide public comment by telephone, and if you're joining by phone, you can press #2 to raise your hand. Depending on how you've accessed the meeting, you may also need to unmute yourself. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes each, so we can move through everyone's public comment and also conduct all the business we need to. And there'll be a timer on the screen to track time. Again, anyone interested in providing comment will need to raise her or his hand by the end of the item, the end of the presentation. That helps us understand who's in the queue. Hands raised after that point won't necessarily get time to make public comment. So let us then move forward. I want to invite our colleagues to share any thoughts they have as we move forward. And maybe I'll just note that this is the last meeting for the Lieutenant Governor to be with us. Those of us who follow the OPC business closely know that the Lieutenant Governor and the State Controller rotate year over year. Really important to have that independent constitutional elected officer voice on the council. So would invite our colleague Carl, who's representing the Lieutenant Governor, to share any remarks he may have.
Thank you, Secretary Crowfoot and Executive Director Eckerle. As noted, this is the last meeting that our office, this Lieutenant Governor Kounalakis, is sitting on this council. So thank you for the chance to give some very brief remarks before we get into the agenda. I think it's a bit of a full circle moment. When she joined the council in 2019, we were considering, and this council is considering the adoption of the 2020 to 2025 strategic plan, and now in our last meeting we will be hopefully adopting the 2026 to 2030 strategic plan. So it's a nice bit of symmetry, I think, for our office. You know, just a quick moment to reflect, and Secretary Crowfoot touched on a number of these already with the SB1 investments, but some of the work that's been done, just enormously proud to serve on this council. Our office, the staff members before myself in this role, the Lieutenant Governor, doing important work in things like sea kelp restoration, the myriad of investments that we make up and down this state in programs and projects. I don't have the exact number. I think in the last 2 years alone, it's somewhere north of $75 million in investments. And you know, a huge thank you to the staff of the council for their diligence and work in making sure those investments are going to things with an equity focus and engaging in the communities, the tribal communities, which has been so important for this council. Developing a microplastic strategy, and of course, under the governor's leadership and Secretary Crowfoot's leadership, all the progress towards the 30 by 30 goals, which we're well underway of achieving, hopefully. You know, as I think we'll just close, as we're looking forward to this next 5 years, that'll be covered by this strategic plan. Even though our office is no longer part of this council, I think we have such incredibly smart and talented individuals on this council and supporting this council through the staff, through the communities who engage, who are here in person, remotely, up and down the state, that are driving just really ambitious, science-focused policies to help address some of the most important issues for our coast and oceans. Thank you.
Carl, thank you. And as I was reading my notes, it didn't fully dawn on me that as we approach the end of the terms, this is literally the last council meeting that Lieutenant Governor Kounalakis and her team will serve on, given that the controller then shifts into the final year of the term in 2026. I just want to thank you. I want to thank your predecessor, Matt Doom-Lau, for representing Lieutenant Governor in so many of these meetings. What an important legacy of hers that Matt is now leading our State Lands Commission. But then also thank her personally. She has been, an in-person presence at so many of these council meetings, engaged, focused, leaning forward, really trying to figure out how she can utilize her office to advance this. So please do pass along our thanks to her for that commitment, and of course the commitment to continue to work together over the next year and beyond. Excellent. In a moment, we're going to hear our updates from the Executive Director and our Director of Ocean Science Trust, but I welcome any other council member comments or updates if anyone would like to give them. All right. I will mention that I have an unplanned family event that I need to step out for partway through the meeting, so big thanks to my colleague Katie Landau from Cal EPA for chairing this when I do need to step out. And with that, let's turn it over to Director Jenn Eckerle to provide the update from our OPC Executive Director.
Thank you, Chair Crowfoot. I also want to start by thanking the Lieutenant Governor. So Councilmember Larson, you'll need to relay this on to her. I want to thank the Lieutenant Governor for her leadership on this council and her unwavering commitment to protecting California's coast and ocean and fighting climate change, her deep dedication to improving the lives of all Californians, and her steadfast focus on economic prosperity. As the first woman ever elected to be Lieutenant Governor in California, she has shown what is possible and has opened the door for more women to follow. I want to thank her for her years of service on this council, the Coastal Commission, and the State Lands Commission. Her leadership has made a lasting positive impact on our marine ecosystems and our coastal communities. I'm really grateful to have had the opportunity to work closely with her, and we will miss her here on the council. Turning now to an update on our Environmental Justice Advisory Board. On November 4th, OPC's Environmental Justice Advisory Board met virtually for its last quarterly session of the year. The meeting focused on collecting final feedback on the equity plan assessment, which you will hear more about in item 7A, with board members identifying future priorities to further strengthen meaningful engagement, maximize community benefits, and better support partnerships with underserved communities and California Native American tribes. The board also received a presentation on the statewide plastics monitoring plan and discussed opportunities to encourage community participation during an upcoming public comment period. Looking ahead to next year, we are identifying engagement priorities aligned with OPC's new strategic plan, and a survey will be circulated to board members to solicit recommendations for strengthened advisory board engagement in the year ahead. A quick update on federal impacts to California's coast and ocean programs, in addition to the update that Secretary Crowfoot provided. In response to council direction, OPC staff released a survey in September to further identify and understand the impacts of federally funded coast and ocean programs in California. This survey will remain open indefinitely so that we can continue to track the ongoing impact to state programs and projects and identify critical environmental data and information gaps. As of October, we received survey responses from 25 entities ranging from local governments, research institutions, national laboratories, and federal agencies. Results from this survey to date indicate that over $450 million in federal funds have been delayed, reduced, or eliminated for programs supporting California's coast and ocean. We are actively assessing the effect of these changes on key coastal and ocean priorities, and we will continue to track these impacts in the coming year. Turning to some additional international efforts, I shared this forthcoming trip at our September meeting, but in October, Mike Eckerle and I had the privilege of attending the International Union for Conservation of Nature's World Conservation Congress in Abu Dhabi. The World Conservation Congress meets every 4 years and draws leaders from across the globe to set international conservation agenda for the next decade and beyond. At the Congress, Governor Newsom announced in a video address that California would make history as one of 2 U.S. states alongside Massachusetts to join the IUCN as a subnational government member. I also had the privilege of accepting the IUCN Green List Award for our Marine Protected Area Network. Recognition of our MPAs as a global gold standard for conservation and the first nature network in the world to receive this honor. Being able to accept this award on behalf of California was one of the highlights of my professional career. Additionally, last month, Dr. Stacy Lewis of our team participated in a Marine Spatial Planning Learning Forum in La Serena, Chile. The Learning Forum was designed to share case studies and expertise from around the globe, including US, Canada, and Brazil, to support Chile's ongoing commitment to strengthen marine conservation and governance. During the 5-day event, Dr. Lewis presented on our MPA network and design and adaptive management efforts and facilitated discussions with the Chilean government officials. This trip is foundational in continuing our budding collaboration between California and Chile to advance biodiversity protections and achieve 30 by 30. Now, a quick update on the Chumash Heritage National Marine Sanctuary. The Sanctuary Advisory Council for the Chumash Heritage National Marine Sanctuary held its first official meeting virtually on December 3rd. Mike Eckerle and I attended as the state government representatives. The council elected its chair, co-chair, and secretary, and discussed establishing a research activities panel that would be grounded both in traditional knowledges and Western science to identify research priorities for the sanctuary. It is truly inspiring to help the successful management of this new sanctuary in partnership with tribes, fishermen, community members, scientists, and others. The next meeting of this advisory council will be held in Pismo Beach in early February. Now I just want to provide a few reflections on 2025 and a look ahead. This year came with a significant set of challenges, from catastrophic wildfires in Los Angeles to the attack on science, public health, and immigrant communities by the federal government. We have been navigating unprecedented impacts to the things that we all hold dear. Our values are being threatened, and at times I feel helpless and hopeless. And at the same time, we are surrounded by so many acts of kindness, people fighting for what is right, and examples of progress in our collective work to protect nature, fight climate change, and improve the lives of all in California. You will hear more from me about our key accomplishments over the last 5 years during item 4 on our new strategic plan. But in 2025 alone, this council invested over $56 million in projects across all 4 of our strategic plan goals, including sea level rise adaptation planning, marine protected area monitoring, electronic monitoring and reporting to improve fisheries management, post-wildfire water quality monitoring, ocean acidification, hypoxia, and harmful algal bloom research, environmental justice and tribal small grants, and sunflower sea star reintroduction efforts. We also advanced key policy priorities to including achieving 30 by 30 in coastal waters. We promoted 1 member of our team to a new role and hired 2 new staff. We hosted 2 Sea Grant Fellows, 5 undergraduate summer interns, 1 executive fellow, and 1 California Climate Action Corps fellow. And we had not 1, but 2 new babies join the OPC team, and another one on the way in 2026. As the council prepares to set the roadmap for our work through the end of this decade, I am so incredibly proud of all the work that we have accomplished together. Even in the face of the challenges that we are seeing today, I remain optimistic because our collective dedication to California's coast and ocean continues to create real, lasting benefits for the people and the places we love. And finally, I need to close my report today with some sad news. We are deeply saddened to share that an incredible ocean advocate and community leader, Joshua Russo, passed away last weekend. As the founder of the Watermen's Alliance and co-creator of Casper Cove Project, Josh was a leading voice for protection and restoration of kelp forests off California's north coast. Whether he was providing comment here at an OPC meeting in Sacramento or briefing divers in a parking lot in Mendocino, Josh had one very clear message. We need to act now to save our kelp forests and the communities that rely on them. OPC staff had the privilege of working closely with Josh to develop creative solutions to the kelp crisis and get local communities more involved. Much of the kelp research and restoration work that we've been supporting has its roots in his tireless advocacy. We will miss Josh's warmth, passion, creativity, and generosity of spirit. and hope to honor his memory by never giving up the fight to save our precious coastal ecosystems. And through the chair, I would recommend that we adjourn this meeting in his memory. That concludes my executive director's report, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Thanks so much. And we will definitely plan to adjourn the meeting in Mr. Rousseau's memory. I'll share too that there is every meeting that we have a really thorough written update from you as executive director. So big thanks to you and your team for putting that together. For those who are joining in person or virtually, if you want to get even more information than what Jenn already shared, check out the OPC agenda online and go to the executive director's report. It's a great way to catch up on all of the progress that we're making between meetings. And with that said, let's turn it over to Liz Whiteman, who leads our Ocean Science Trust.
Thank you, Chair Crowfoot, Council members. So as you consider adoption of the OPC strategic plan in the next agenda item, I am so proud to take this opportunity to briefly lift and share Ocean Science Trust's newly released strategic direction for the next 5 years, which is also attached as an exhibit to this agenda item, and to highlight a couple of the ways in which we're committed to bringing our science mission to support in accomplishing California's goals in that new strategic plan. So 25 years ago, the California legislature created the Ocean Science Trust with the mandate to mobilize capacity and resources for ocean science and to connect that knowledge and understanding effectively with decisions. We're really proud to embody, in a very strategic and institutionalized way, California's values and commitment to science. Looking back at the words in CORSA from 25 years ago, the California Ocean Resources Stewardship Act that created us, this mandate almost feels strangely prescient of what this year would bring. And so with classic British understatement, and because I don't otherwise have the words, I'll just note that 2025 has been a challenging year for science. And while we see a retreat in support, capacity, and funding at a national federal level, as you heard from Director Eckerle, the same is not true in California. And so we would add our voice to say that we're stepping up and bringing the full weight of our science mission and the full opportunity of our state-connected, yet also independent organizational structure to bear. So to illustrate, I just did want to highlight a couple of things from our new strategic direction. In tandem with the release and responding to our mandates to mobilize resources, to support ocean science graduate education, and to support state science needs, we are so thrilled to have launched a new fund, the Sea Change Scholars Fund, to provide financial support to graduate students and an opportunity for them to conduct research with tangible real-world impact. So through some initial partnerships that we'll look to expand in the future, our initial partnerships with CSU Coast and UC Santa Cruz, we're tapping into the capacity of students to engage with state science needs on issues like offshore wind, sustainable fisheries, meeting needs identified by California Department of Fish and Wildlife and other state agencies. And I'd offer that this is an example of the value of science public-private partnerships. And part of the reason for our creation as a state-connected yet independent organization. Our board has committed the public support needed to cover startup and administrative costs of this new fund, enabling us to mobilize new external, in this case private resources, directly to support students. We're privileged to serve as science advisor to OPC, bringing networked connection to the science sector via the science advisory team. I won't say more on that now because you'll hear more from that on my colleague Bree Lindsay in agenda item 5. And so finally, the other thing I wanted to just lift is we also know that the California legislature has a key role to play in both science policy and ocean policy. And we're committed to bringing our nonpartisan position to bear to serve our legislative community is with the trusted, objective science knowledge and advice that can inform their work. And although this is about building capacity in academia and scientists to engage with the legislature, it's also about sharing the enormous amount of ocean and coastal science that is happening within the agencies and bridging with science from the executive to legislative government branches. So I'll just close by reaffirming that we look forward to strengthening our partnerships throughout California and to continuing our partnership here with you all, the Ocean Protection Council, and the role of science as you move forward with the next strategic plan in 5 years. So let's do this.
Well, wonderful symmetry with the updates of the strategic direction of the Ocean Science Trust, aligned and coordinated, lining up really nicely with our consideration of the strategic plan for OPC over the next 5 years. I neglected to share one more development in my initial remarks, and reflecting on the passing of Mr. Rousseau, you know, the old adage that the only constant is change. Bittersweet news that we say goodbye to Chuck Bonham, who served as the director of the California Fish and Wildlife Department for over 15 years, spanning 2 governor administrations. His team, his partnership and leadership has been really critical to the work that we do on California's coast because, of course, the Department of Fish and Wildlife has a responsibility for protecting nature in California state waters and off our coast. So we say goodbye to Chuck, thank him for his leadership. He's not going far. They announced earlier this week that Chuck will join the Nature Conservancy, leading its California effort. So he'll continue to play an important role in all the things we work on together. So with that said, let's then move on to the work of the council here today for our first action item, which is consideration and approval of the 2026 to 2030 Ocean Protection Council Strategic Plan. This is agenda item 4 on our agenda. And I'll turn it over to Director Eckerle, Jenn, for an initial presentation.
Thank you. I'm really excited for this item, so if I could get the next slide. So I'm thrilled to be here today to present OPC's final 2026 to 2030 strategic plan for council adoption. This plan is our roadmap to 2030, and it will direct OPC policy and investments through the end of the decade. It is built on 4 key goals that describe what the council wants to achieve with the aim of aligning collective action towards these goals. The plan includes clear targets to track progress and success, ensuring accountability and transparency in OPC's work. It institutionalizes OPC's core values and will maintain critical momentum and continuity for staff and partners. This plan builds on the goals, priority, and progress from the last strategic plan, and it is similarly ambitious to the last strategic plan, but provides increased focus on actions that OPC will lead and elevates actions that are key priorities for collaborative work with state agencies and other partners. Next slide. So a brief reminder about our process for how we got here today. This plan was shaped through extensive outreach engagement over the last year. This included an initial discussion at the September 2024 council meeting, virtual and in-person listening sessions, early consultation, tribal roundtables, and in-person meetings across the state between November of last year and February of this year that shaped our early input into even drafting the initial version of the plan. We gathered additional input through an online form, and then we had a discussion at the June council meeting, followed by a public webinar, continued tribal consultation, and written public comment period through August 1st of this year. Next slide, please. So we received over 30 individual comment letters on the draft plan, many of which were submitted by coalitions of multiple organizations. We did make revisions from the draft to the final in response to some public comments, and I want to just highlight a few here. We added a new objective under Goal 2 to increase safe and equitable access to the coast, and we included new targets that were centered around providing recreational and commercial fishing experiences to underserved youth, and improving seafood contamination monitoring with a focus on subsistence fishing and pollution hotspots. We revised targets to elevate the role of the Marine Protected Area statewide leadership team and prioritize long-term MPA monitoring. We increased our restoration targets, both for coastal wetlands and for kelp. And we clarified, strengthened, and added new targets addressing water quality impacts from nutrients, bacteria, pollution, plastics, and microplastics. And we also revised an objective under Goal 4 to highlight our prioritization for supporting fishing communities in addition to supporting sustainable fisheries and aquaculture. Next slide, please. The plan includes a brief overview of who the council is, our mission and vision, our core values, how we work, and the partnerships that we rely on to be successful. It also includes a summary of OPC's key accomplishments over the last 5 years. I will walk you all through those sections now quickly before moving on to the goals. Next slide, please. Our mission and vision have not changed from the last strategic plan, and they are rooted in our enabling legislation. So our mission continues to be protecting California's coast and ocean with a vision of healthy and resilient coastal and ocean ecosystems for current and future generations. Next slide, please. We did update our core values and outline them as service, stewardship, inclusivity, integrity, innovation, and collaboration. Next slide, please. How we work will remain the same. We will continue to advance science-based policy and management, make strategic investments, and catalyze action through partnerships and collaboration. Next slide. And the partnerships are the foundation of our work. We cannot do this work alone, and we rely on the expertise and the networks of state agencies, local, federal, and tribal governments, academic institutions, nonprofit organizations, community groups, fishermen, scientists, and more. We also have strong and unique partnerships with California's 2 Sea Grant programs and the California Ocean Science Trust, which was created in statute to bring science to ocean policy and management in the state and serves as our science advisor and secretariat for our science advisory team. These collective partnerships underpin the state's coordinated science, policy, and management, and our efforts to maximize benefits for the coast and for the communities that rely on a healthy ocean. Next slide. We have made significant progress over the last 5 years. I'm going to highlight some key accomplishments here. We have invested over $230 million to advance all 4 of our strategic goals. We updated the state's sea level rise guidance, and we launched our brand new SB1 Sea Level Rise Adaptation Grant Program. We issued our first ever equity plan and tribal engagement strategy, our first ever environmental justice advisory board. We did a 45-acre land return to the Wiyot tribe near Humboldt Bay. We launched and helped launch and expand the Tribal Marine Stewards Network. And we launched an ambitious world-leading approach to conserving 30% of our coastal waters. Next slide. We advanced MPA monitoring to support the state's first decadal management review of our Marine Protected Area Network, the nation's first statewide microplastic strategy. We catalyzed action to address catastrophic kelp loss. We protected wildlife and fisheries by reducing entanglement risk. We demonstrated biodiversity leadership on the international stage, and we advanced science to inform offshore wind development. Next slide, please. Now I'll walk you through our 4 goals and highlight the objectives under each. Goal 1 is to build resilience to climate change. This includes objectives to protect ecosystems and communities from the impacts of sea level rise, coastal storms, erosion, and flooding, and to limit the causes and impacts of ocean acidification, hypoxia, and harmful algal blooms. Next slide, please. It's coming. Can I get the next slide? Thank you. Goal 2 is to maximize community benefits and stewardship. This includes strengthening partnerships with California Native American tribes, expanding engagement with underserved communities, increasing safe and equitable access to the coast, building an inclusive ocean and coastal workforce, and enhancing public outreach, understanding, and awareness. Next slide, please. Goal 3 is to safeguard coastal and marine biodiversity. These objectives include conserving 30% of California's coastal waters by 2030, strengthening the performance and durability of California's MPA network, restoring vulnerable coastal and marine ecosystems, protecting and improving coastal and ocean water quality, and strengthening international partnerships to advance biodiversity conservation around the globe. Next slide, please. And our last goal is to enable a sustainable blue economy that protects ocean health. Objectives include supporting thriving fishing communities, climate-resilient fisheries, and sustainable aquaculture, understanding and minimizing the potential impacts from offshore wind on the environment, tribes, and coastal communities, and reducing the impacts of other industrial uses of the ocean. Next slide. We also included a section at the beginning of the plan that highlights the importance of tracking change over time. So over the next 5 years, OPC will build on existing successful monitoring programs to strengthen coordination, increase innovation, elevate the role of tribal knowledges, and better integrate community science into monitoring. And we will ensure that monitoring results are effectively communicated to resource managers and the public. Next slide, please. We did receive a public comment, and we have a recommended revision for council consideration. We received a request from the Leadership Council of the Tribal Marine Stewards Network, which is made up of 6 tribal governments, to revise Objective 2.1.2 as shown on the screen to better reflect tribal priorities for this program. Staff is recommending that the council include this revised language in its motion to adopt the strategic plan. Next slide, please. To the council, the Environmental Justice Advisory Board, tribal leaders, agency partners, and members of the community who provided feedback, thank you. We could not do this work without all of you, and this plan would not be what it is without the vision and expertise of all that contributed. A special thanks to every member of the OPC team. Each one of you is woven into this plan. It reflects your contributions and your priorities and is truly our plan. An extra special thanks to Stacy Hayden for working tirelessly on the design and layout and for enduring my relentless feedback and recommendations for revision. I'm really proud of everything that we have collectively accomplished over the last 5 years, and I'm excited about the work ahead to protect California's precious coastal resources in service of all in California now and into the future. I strongly recommend council adoption of this plan as our roadmap through 2030. And with that, I will turn it back over to you, Secretary.
Thanks so much. It really is just an impressive strategic plan. I invite anybody who hasn't taken a look at it to read it. And one thing we're striving to over the last several years in California is to ensure that these aren't plans sitting on shelves that don't mean something, but are actually roadmaps for action. And in reviewing this, I love how clear and directive it is, how readable it is for the non-expert, how visually compelling it is. So congratulations and thank you, Stacy, on that. And in just a moment, we'll take public comment. So if anybody would like to provide public comment in person, please make your way to the front. And anybody who is joining us virtually, raise your virtual hand or press #2. It does seem like it's remarkable. It's been really 6 years since we set forth the last strategic plan, and I'm struck by how durable the core objectives were and the need to update our very specific outcomes that we're working towards, reflecting all this progress. So with that said, let's begin public comment, and we'll start with those here in person. And everybody has 2 minutes to provide your thoughts, and then we'll go to virtual public comment. Welcome. I think it.
There we go. Hi. Good morning, everyone. My name is Carla Garcia. I'm here with Monterey Bay Aquarium. I just wanted to express our strong support for the adoption of the strategic plan and to thank everyone for the opportunity to comment and staff for their thoughtful consideration of our recommendations. We look forward to working with OPC to get this work done. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Crowfoot and council members. Jennifer Fearing here today on behalf of the Pew Charitable Trust. We want to first thank OPC staff and leadership for the strong and comprehensive strategic plan. It's the kind of impressive work that OPC regularly delivers. We want to offer two specific kudos, you named them on your slide, for the 5 times increase in wetlands targets and the more than 3 times increase in the kelp restoration target. Appreciate those changes between the draft and the final. I did want to make a continued ask on Pew's behalf. It was described at length in our letter in July that OPC seek to use its statutory charge to identify and recommend to the legislature changes in law needed to, quote, improve protection, conservation, and restoration of ocean ecosystems, end quote, and other goals that the foundational statute for OPC gives to the council. Since the inception of the council in 2004, OPC has played critical roles in coordinating multi-agency, multi-jurisdictional initiatives and funding state and local agencies, sovereign tribal governments, stakeholders, and scientists. But we really want to encourage OPC to make use of the existing statutory provisions outlined in the California Ocean Protection Act of the Public Resources Code. Our letter to you in July provided several types of examples of recommendations OPC could make to educate and encourage the legislature, including new policy changes pursuant to achieving California's Coastal 30 by 30 goal, policy and funding changes needed to achieve OPC strategic objectives and targets for tidal wetlands and other important estuary habitats, and recommendations to address concerns from California communities that the new standards for local sea level rise planning and adaptation stemming from SB 272 are only considered as opposed to required. The challenges facing marine habitats and human communities demand clear, action-oriented recommendations from entities that understand best what is happening now on California's lands and waters, and we think OPC is well suited to recommend policy changes and should do so since the enabling statute envisioned it. So again, thank you for your time and commitment, and we appreciate your ongoing consideration of this. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Secretary Crowfoot, Executive Director Eckerle, and council members. I'm Megan Cleveland with the Nature Conservancy, here to express our strong support for the adoption of the strategic plan. Try to keep my comments to 2 minutes, but we'll go quick. So first of all, we'd like to express our deep gratitude to Director Eckerle and her staff for their hard work on the strategic plan. We're grateful for the incredible time and effort that went into writing and finalizing the document, and we really appreciate OPC's public engagement process throughout. We would like to thank OPC for incorporating several of our recommendations into the final plan. Specifically, under Objective 3.3, we appreciate OPC increasing the ambition of the 2030 acre-based restoration targets for kelp forests and coastal wetlands. However, we are disappointed that the acre-based targets for native oyster beds and eelgrass remain and were not increased in the final plan. California has a great opportunity to lead on the restoration of native oyster and eelgrass habitats. A key component of that leadership is an ambitious vision for marine habitat restoration and establishing ambitious yet achievable acre-based targets for native oyster beds and eelgrass meadow restoration is paramount to realizing that vision. TNC also appreciates the updates to the fisheries-related targets under Goal 4. In Target 4.1.1, we're pleased to see OPC's commitment to work with CDFW to design and implement a modernized data system for all California fisheries, which includes electronic reporting for relevant fisheries. We appreciate OPC's commitment to support adaptive management of priority climate vulnerable species through completing at least 3 FMPs, improving enhanced status reports, and funding innovative scientific tools under Target 4.1.2. And finally, we appreciate OPC's commitment to support implementation of priority actions to reduce whale vulnerability to ship strikes under Target 4.3.2. So thank you again to the OPC staff for their incredible efforts on the strategic plan, and we look forward to continuing to work with you to implement the important goals and actions that the plan establishes. Thank you.
Thank you. And you did it in 2 minutes.
Hello, Secretary Crowfoot, Director Eckerle, all of the council, Laura Dehan here, Director of Environment California and Environment California Research and Policy Center. I'm also here in strong support for the adoption of the strategic plan, and obviously the period between now and 2030 really couldn't be more important in terms of action to protect our ocean and to protect marine life. This is the decade for the ocean, right, from the global community, and it is wonderful to be here in a state where we have an administration willing to stand up and speak for the ocean, here in this agency, especially as we're seeing the impacts of climate change all around us. A marine heat wave right now that's setting records in the Pacific Ocean. We know that the disastrous impact that's going to have on marine ecosystems, it's undetermined, but as big threats. And so the work that this council does in the next 5 years couldn't be more important. One particular goal I wanted to uplift that I really appreciated was the goal of strengthening California's marine protected area network, which is one of our best tools to safeguard our ocean health. And wanted to really urge us continued strong engagement and work closely with the Department of Fish and Wildlife, especially right now, as they're undergoing their science review of petitions to adaptively manage that network. We just want to make sure that and ask that you're engaging to make sure they're using the best available peer-reviewed science in that review, and not just relying on what happened 15 years ago as like what we should do moving forward. So asking for that as part of the action under that action item. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Hi, good afternoon, council members and Secretary Jared Voskuil on behalf of CASA, the California Association of Sanitation Agencies. CASA represents over 150 wastewater agencies that engage in the collection, treatment, and recycling of wastewater. Here in support of the strategic plan, and very pleased to see this milestone. We are really grateful for the process over the course of the year in developing it, having multiple check-ins with stakeholders, and then the addition in this final version of Objective 1.2.4 that calls for multi-benefit projects that both recycle wastewater and also remove nutrients. Our member agencies are very committed to those projects, and I previously shared we had an engineering report that was in development. It was completed this past October, and in that report it shared the Southern California region has planned a 40% reduction in the loading to the Pacific Ocean by 2050. That's all without a stroke of the pen. It's just their good planning for water recycling. We're very proud and excited about that. Our members have also contributed over $1 million in the last couple of months. They've committed to that to continue working on the development of the model. So we get a sense of how far do we need to go with these reductions and what further work might need to happen, or is that going to get us far enough for the objectives that are being developed by your team by 2030. We're very happy to be collaborating with you all, and the Ocean Protection Council has been involved in these initiatives with SWRP and some of the independent reviews, and for that time and participation, we're grateful for it. And so we're happy to continue working in the years ahead and look forward to the next strategic plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Sandy Ellsworth, and I'm Director of the Pacific Initiative with NRDC. And in all candor, I was planning to be upstairs at the Tribal Committee meeting, but I just wanted to swing by and commend you on the really strong strategic plan, and also emphasize the both give kudos to the shout out to 30 by 30 and increasing protections by 2027, and then also calling to strengthen the MPA network. Similar to Environment California, I just wanted to highlight the fact that the current adaptive management network would really help sort of check off or make meaningful progress toward many of the goals, such as strengthening national marine sanctuaries, advancing tribal co-stewardship, and really protect kind of these unique habitats along the California coast. So congratulations and thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Tomás Valadez with Azul. Would like to express our strong support for the strategic plan and also second the comments made by Sandy Ellsworth and Laura Dian regarding uplifting and strengthening our marine protected area network during this critical time for our ocean. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all of that in-person comment. Always great to see you in person here in Sacramento. For those joining virtually, let us turn it to our team to run through those who want to provide public comment.
We have 9 commenters in the queue. Our first speaker is Tara Detmar, followed by Casey Olson, Tara, you have the floor.
Good afternoon. My name is Tara Detmar. I'm the program manager for the Tribal Marine Stewards Network. We'd like to thank staff for your request to adopt the revision regarding Objective 2.1.2, and I'm going to read the letter that our Leadership Council submitted. The Tribal Marine Stewards Network is an alliance of tribal nations working collaboratively to steward, protect, and restore our ocean coastal spaces within ancestral territories. For over 5 years, both the TMSN and the state have worked together to strengthen our relationship and to build increased understanding of the vision and goals of the network. The tribes of the network are very appreciative of the state's collaboration, support, and partnership. We're also incredibly pleased to see that the TMSN has been included in OPC's draft strategic plan, which demonstrates an ongoing commitment to this important partnership and our work. Objective 2.1 of the draft plan calls for OPC to strengthen partnerships with California's Native American tribes, and we fully support OPC's effort to maximize stewardship through this objective. Objective 2.1.2, however, raises concerns for us as we were not adequately consulted about whether or not the tribes of the TMSN were amenable to taking on 3 new tribes. Objective 2.1.2 currently reads, by 2028, support the continued success and growth of the TMSN by providing funding to further scale up the network with at least 3 new tribes participating. While we applaud OPC's belief in us, we're committed to growing at a pace that ensures long-term sustainable success and including tribal nations that are deeply committed to the vision and spirit of collaboration of the TMSN. Quality of involvement and the impact of the work is much more important to us than quantity of tribes participating. Similarly, we must also first ensure sustainability of the 6 tribes that have already demonstrated that commitment. Therefore, we would like to propose the following language and request the Objective 2.1.2 be amended to read, by 2030, support the continued success and growth of the TMSN by providing funding to sustain existing 6-member tribes and further scale up the network of up to 3 new participating tribes. We feel this amendment meets the goals and intent of both the TMSN members and tribe and OPC. Sincerely, the Leadership Council of the Tribal Marine Stewards Network.
Thank you, and duly noted.
Our next speaker is Casey Olson, followed by Sarah Hudo. Casey, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, members of the council. My name is Casey Olson, and I am the Legal and Policy Fellow with the Environmental Action Committee of West Marin. We support the adoption of the 2026 through 2030 strategic plan. Today, we would like to highlight a few particular aspects that we support. First, we support the implementation of a strategy to recognize and co-steward Indigenous marine stewardship areas in Objective 2.1. Recognizing at least 1 new Indigenous marine stewardship area by 2027 supports actionable and meaningful recognition of the longtime tribal stewardship of California's lands and waters. We support the Council's continued collaboration with Indigenous leaders. We also support Objective 3.2 to strengthen the performance and durability of California's marine protected area network. Specifically, the petition process is one method of adaptive management and can also help support the state's 30 by 30 goals. As many are aware, marine protected area management must be adaptive in response to climate change, ocean acidification, and other impacts. We also support long-term monitoring of the network and the use of MPA Watch community science data. Lastly, related to Objective 4.1, we specifically support the review and adoption of Aquaculture Action Plan next year, and we look forward to the participation of the public process. We hope that a precautionary approach will be taken related to our sensitive marine resources and commercial interests. Thank you for your time and consideration of these comments.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Sarah Hudo, followed by Richard Sadowski. Sarah, you have the floor.
Okay, I think you can hear me now. Good afternoon, council members, and thank you for the opportunity to comment on the council's new strategic plan. My name is Sarah Hutto with the California Marine Sanctuary Foundation, where for 3 decades we've championed science-based solutions to protect our marine ecosystems and to strengthen our community's resilience from coastal mountains to the sea. And so CMSF greatly appreciates our ongoing collaborations with OPC on a great diversity of topics, and we're very encouraged to see such an ambitious plan. In particular, since 2018, California Marine Sanctuary Foundation has served as the fiscal administrator and a proud partner for the Protecting Blue Whales and Blue Skies program, an incentive-based vessel speed reduction effort that has, across its 10 years, collaborated with over 50 of the world's largest cargo shipping lines to reduce the speeds of large vessels transiting in our coastal waters. And this has significantly reduced underwater noise, emissions, and ship strike risk to whales. So CMSF, along with our coalition of partners, which includes NOAA's Office of National Marine Sanctuaries and county air district agencies from Ventura up to the Bay Area, we've been very thrilled to see the passing of Assembly Bill 14, which authorizes the statewide expansion of Blue Whales, Blue Skies, and brings OPC in as an official partner. We're similarly encouraged by OPC's new strategic plan, which references in section 4.3 OPC's intent to support implementation of priority actions to reduce whale vulnerability to ship strikes, including the expansion of the existing Blue Whales, Blue Skies vessel speed reduction program. So we look forward to working with OPC to scale and expand our impact in the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Richard Sadowski, followed by Zoe Collins. Richard, you have the floor.
Hi, this is Richard Sadowski, Homefront EJ, Morro Bay. I want to let you guys know that we in Homefront EJ, Morro Bay, we support this great strategic goal, and especially I like the maximizing community benefits and stewardship, strengthening international partnerships, supporting the blue economy, and strengthening monitoring programs to fill the fill the data gaps. And I'd like to echo what one of the previous speakers said about continuing to educate the legislature, and we really appreciate your courage during the times that we live in. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Zoe Collins, followed by Brenda Godin. Zoe, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, Secretary Crowfoot and honorable council members. Thank you so much for this opportunity to comment. My name is Zoe Collins, and I'm representing Heal the Bay, an environmental nonprofit advocating for the coastal waters and watersheds of Greater Los Angeles. We'd first like to take a moment to appreciate all the work that you've undertaken to develop such a thoughtful strategic plan that really reflects the needs of our dynamic and changing oceans. We're particularly grateful for the local workshops that integrated stakeholder feedback in person and in real time, particularly all of your inclusion of the recommended language that we provided over this public comment period. As per our original comments, we strongly support your revision to include specific language for seafood contamination monitoring and the adoption of an aquaculture action plan. We'd also like to specifically commend and uplift the revision to include target 2.3.2, which specifies providing funding for a project that studies how humans visit and experience the coast. As program managers of LA County's MPA Watch chapter, we recognize the immense need to expand our understandings of human uses of coastal spaces and maintain long-term monitoring projects that do so. Goal 2 very intentionally brings all stakeholders to the table and thoughtfully integrates tribal stewardship and environmental justice principles into your team's work. All of these details will significantly strengthen OPC's work in the coming years, and we're grateful for their integration. Heal the Bay strongly supports adoption of the revised strategic plan, and again, thank you for your continued dedication to the health of California's coasts and oceans. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Brenda Godin, followed by Jennifer Salgrath. Brenda, you have the floor.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes, we can.
Great. Thank you, Chair Crowfoot, Director Eckerle, and council members for all of the work that you and the staff have done to create this very wonderful strategic plan. BCDC, the San Francisco Bay Conservation and Development Commission, and the Ocean Protection Council have long partnered in protecting California's vital natural resources with our focused efforts on coastal zone management and specifically San Francisco Bay for people and nature to thrive together. Through our partnership, we have enjoyed collaborating on policy issues, including adaptation to rising seas, habitat restoration and protection, and using planning and implementation mechanisms to support our joint goals, including regional planning efforts, wetland restoration, beneficial reuse of sediment that would be otherwise wasted. Through this partnership, our efforts have been supported by Ocean Protection Council funding, for which we are very grateful. BCDC fully supports the adoption of the Ocean Protection Council's strategic plan and its 4 goals as increasing ocean and coastal health and increasing equity and inclusion benefits all Californians and the nation. Objectives included in these goals specifically speak to BCDC's mission. The San Francisco Bay Conservation and Development Commission protects and enhances San Francisco Bay, the inland coast, and advances the bay's responsible, productive, and equitable uses for today and future generations to come as we face climate change and rising seas. OPC's first goal, building resilience to climate change, and specifically Objective 1.1, protect communities and ecosystems from the impacts of sea level rise, coastal storms, erosion, and flooding, with a focus on sea level rise guidance updates, sub-regional sea level rise plan development and implementation, recreational areas, groundwater, and contaminated sites are aligned with BCDC's current efforts. In fact, the Ocean Protection Council has significantly funded BCDC's work in these areas through Senate Bill 1 grant program. With our planning and regulatory program, we continue to work on beneficiary use of sediment. We'd like to uplift that goal. The rest of our comments are provided in a letter to the council submitted yesterday. And thank you very much for this effort.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Jennifer Salgrath, followed by Sean Hastings. Jennifer, you have the floor.
My name is Dr. Jennifer Salgrath, and I'm a social ecological research scientist with the California Marine Sanctuary Foundation and a member of California's MPA Social Science Working Group. Thank you for the visionary work OPC is doing to protect our oceans as outlined in the strategic plan. I'm also grateful that OPC supports our social science research on ocean access. The OPC draft strategic plan outlines 4 interconnected goals, including maximize community benefits and stewardship. And to achieve this is vital to center people and social science in the state's MPA monitoring plan. OPC can do this by adopting a social ecological framework, which is at the cutting edge of marine science, building on Nobel Prize winning research. I urge OPC to fund the forthcoming recommendations from the MPA Social Science Working Group that will speak to this. When people ask me what social science can do for ocean management, I offer 3 key points. 1, managing oceans is about managing people. 2, social science aligns management with community needs and values. And 3, well-designed social science brings diverse, representative perspectives to the decision-making table. And this can directly help OPC uphold its strategic plan's core values of service and of inclusivity. I'd also thought I'd share some preliminary results from our ongoing ocean access survey, which has reached over 4,500 Californians from the Mexican border to the Oregon border. The most common ocean activities we found are walking and running and group and family gatherings such as barbecues. And this underscores the importance of coastal spaces for community well-being. We found that 63% of respondents have never heard of marine protected areas or were only slightly familiar with them, highlighting the need for greater outreach in this area and connecting people to the coasts. But critically, the top management priority across the state is protecting threatened marine life. And this shows that despite low familiarity with MPAs, the public strongly supports OPC's Goal 3 of protecting marine biodiversity and strengthening the MPA network. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Sean Hastings, followed by Monica. Sean, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, Chair Crowfoot and members of the Ocean Protection Council. My name is Sean Hastings. I'm the Policy, Information, and Management Officer with the Channel Islands National Marine Sanctuary and on the Whale Conservation Team Lead for the West Coast sanctuaries from Channel Islands up through the Atlantic Coast off Washington. And on behalf of the West Coast region of sanctuaries, we strongly urge adoption of the strategic plan. We really appreciate and acknowledge Director Eckerle and the staff's engagement of not only sanctuaries, but our sanctuary communities. And of course, the longstanding role that the Director Eckerle and her staff play on our sanctuary advisory councils. And in particular, we urge support of this plan because it embodies much of what sanctuaries along the California coast are doing in concert with the state regarding management of marine protected areas and specifically reducing impacts of other industrial uses on the ocean. The recent adoption of Assembly Bill 14 to expand our Blue Whales and Blue Skies program is an exciting time to have the Ocean Protection Council join this effort to help us expand it geographically throughout the state and to enhance the impacts that were so well summarized by Sarah Hutto from the California Marine Sanctuary Foundation. Reducing the risk of fatal ship strikes on endangered whales, reducing air emissions, and underwater radiated noise. For all these reasons, we welcome the Ocean Protection Council staff to our broad coalition of Blue Whales, Blue Skies, and again, urge support and adoption of the strategic plan. Thank you so much.
The next speaker is Monica Kroc, followed by the final speaker, Liz Parasenti. Monica, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, council members and staff. My name is Monica Kroc, Executive Director of the Greater Farallones Association. The Greater Farallones Association conserves the wildlife and habitats of the Greater Farallones, Cordell Bank, and Northern Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuaries through science, education, and restoration, and has been doing so for over 3 decades. We are proud to support the OPC strategic plan and encourage you to review the full written comment letter we submitted yesterday. We also appreciate the public process OPC has led to develop the plan, and thank you for incorporating Greater Farallones Association's recommendations submitted in July. I want to focus my comment today on one of the plan's most urgent priorities, kelp recovery. Along the north central California coast, the collapse of bulk kelp forests has transformed entire ecosystems affecting biodiversity, fisheries, and coastal communities. OPC's commitment to completing a statewide kelp restoration and management plan and restoring at least 500 acres of kelp by 2030 is exactly the kind of leadership California needs. As authors of the Sonoma-Mendocino Bulk Kelp Recovery and Restoration Plan, and as active practitioners restoring 27 acres today using grazer suppression and innovative outplanting techniques, Greater Farallones Association has deep experience in what it takes to rebuild these ecosystems. We encourage OPC to integrate lessons learned, tribal partnerships, and long-term monitoring data into the statewide plan. California has a real opportunity to scale effective, science-driven kelp restoration. Greater Farallones Association stands ready to partner with OPC to help deliver the goals and targets in OPC's new strategic plan. Thank you for your leadership.
The final speaker is Liz Parasenti. Liz, you have the floor.
Hello, my name is Liz Parasenti, and I'm a Senior Program Officer at Resources Legacy Fund. I'd like to express our deep appreciation for OPC's vision and coastal and ocean leadership, and our support for the ambitious goals in your strategic plan. Thank you to the OPC Council, to staff and leadership for your dedication, and congratulations on all that has been accomplished. We've appreciated working with OPC on so many components of your past and ongoing strategic plan to ensure that our ocean is healthy, resilient, and accessible to all. We're really looking forward to continued partnership to support California's coast and ocean into the future and build on OPC's core values and our work at RLF. Thanks so much.
Great, thank you so much to everyone for your comments. Secretary Crowfoot did have to leave, so I'm just stepping in. Katie Landau, Special Advisor to the Deputy Secretary for Water Policy, and I'm happy to be here for Secretary Yana Garcia. So before quickly we move to council member discussion, I do just want to make one procedural note. We do have both the plan in front of us for consideration of adoption, as well as the one amendment that was presented both in the staff presentation and in public comment. Councilmember Rocha does need to recuse herself from the amendment. So just want to propose that we split the discussion and the vote for the strategic plan into 2 votes. And then we can so have those 2 separate discussions. And just make sure that sounds good for everyone. And if it does, then I will invite discussion or comments from any council members. Please.
Thank you. I first just wanted to start off by acknowledging
I just learned about the news about Joss Russo. He was a very close friend and colleague, so this just hits really personally. And I think he's just indicative of the type of spirit and energy that we need in the broader ocean conservation movement. To know Josh was to love him, and he will be sorely missed, so sorry. Where I was going on this agenda item, though, was that I keep coming back to ambitious, science-based guidance. And I think in light of all of the accolades that we're hearing about the state of California being a beacon for like what international conservation can look like in light of the MPA network, I'm thinking about this plan and the terminal year being 2030, which is like a number that keeps coming up in a number of global initiatives as like a huge goal and mark to meet. And then I just keep thinking about the fact that as we talk about ambition, yes, it needs to be grounded in feasibility, but it's okay also to be uncomfortable in the pursuit of excellence. And so I think I come here with a comment and a question, and I think it's really, how are we defining ambition? And I think ambition is something that is relative, like the actions that are relative to the magnitude of the problem. And so as I look at some of the targets that are set out in the restoration portion of this plan, I have a question for staff around like, can you help me to better understand what are the scientific underpinnings of these targets relative to the magnitude of loss, and call the question of, are we being ambitious enough with some of these? Can and should we consider going farther before we adopt this plan?
Thank you, Councilmember Jackson. And these are questions that we did not take lightly in the development of the plan, in the revision of the plan. So I'm happy to walk through habitat by habitat if that's helpful. I'll start with coastal wetlands and acknowledge that we increased the target from draft to final. We now have a target of up to, or at least 7,000 acres of coastal wetlands restored. And that number was derived through consultation with state agency partners, including the Coastal Conservancy, regional managers, public comment, and stakeholder feedback that we received throughout the process. And it really reflects kind of the feasibility and opportunity. We've had, the Coastal Conservancy relayed that they've restored about 20,000 acres over the last 2 decades. So that's about 1,000 acres per year. That's just in San Francisco Bay. But they acknowledge that there's less opportunity now as we continue to, I think, identify and restore places that are maybe a little more challenging, may have higher cost due to needs for remediation, understanding just the cost of construction and restoration is increasingly going up. So we grounded that target based on the knowledge and expertise of our agency partners and practitioners who are doing this work. For eelgrass, we had originally thought about just including a target to prioritize preservation of existing eelgrass beds. Rather than expansion, I was not, and that was kind of grounded in, given the high cost and the variable success, we know these habitats are, even if we restore them, they can be ephemeral, they're very sensitive. But I don't think, not setting a restoration target was the right way to go. But we did identify the acreage proposed for restoration for eelgrass based on the cost and the opportunity and places where we can do this restoration. So we know, generally speaking, this restoration is happening in estuaries. We have an estimate. We received a proposal through a previous solicitation for eelgrass restoration across 15 acres in Richardson Bay, with a price tag of $1.5 million. So we are trying to balance the feasibility, the realism, and the cost of restoring these habitats, and then, trying to balance all of these things, right? We understand all these habitats are critically important for ecosystems, for fisheries, for climate resilience, and we unfortunately do not have a limitless amount of resources. So we are trying to kind of
that calculus and balance went into everything we were doing. For oyster beds, we have an estimated cost around $100,000 per acre for oysters. We have some examples of oyster restoration in estuaries. There is additional kind of agency discussion and some need for consensus building for oyster restoration along the open coast. And so that target kind of reflects the opportunities within estuaries and the need to kind of continue to figure out how to do this on the open coast. And then finally, with kelp, we did increase, as you heard and read, the target from 150 acres to 500 acres, especially given the significant amount of funding in Proposition 4, specifically for kelp restoration, and as you mentioned, the significant need to address the collapse. That being said, we still have many outstanding questions about how and where to do this type of restoration, how to maintain it over time, and we have examples. We had the restoration project up in Mendocino and Noyo Bay and Albion Cove. It was $6,600 dollars per acre for the initial urgent clearing. It was about $1,400 per acre for maintenance. And so we're acknowledging the limitations in the cost and trying to balance the need to really advance these habitat restoration projects for the health of the ocean. So I guess all of that is to say, we did put a lot of thought. We tried to ground this in what is happening, on the ground in these projects, and still set a target that will push us to do more.
Thank you for that clarification. It's helpful to hear about the internal processes. And I think here in a lot of that, like a groundedness in feasibility, which again is a necessary lever, and a groundedness in like the solution sets of today, acknowledging that we will learn and grow as we move towards a more ambitious goal. And I think, while each of these habitats have their challenges, perhaps in the kelp space where there's an active restoration plan and a lot of energy and investments that this council has put forward, that there's room for an increase in the potential targets, particularly for that ecosystem.
Thank you. I think we would be open to talking that through. Do we want to do that now? Do you have a recommendation, council member?
I would open this up to dialogue with the people sitting up here with me on the council. But it certainly seems if there was an openness and an ambition to kind of moving from, about tripling what we saw from the drafts to what's put forward as a proposal, if there's a space to think about doing a similar doubling or tripling of the estimate. So if we're at like something like 500 acres now, is there a feasibility in doing something closer to 2,000 acres and really leaning into the ambition of the type of restoration that we're talking about?
Do other members of the council want to react to this before I do?
I did see Councilmember Roach's hand up. No. I definitely support the ambition of the higher acreage number. Would want to hear more just on the feasibility of it, with the acknowledgement that we can always push for the targets and have that broad picture, even if at the end of the day we don't achieve it over the next 5 years. But
thank you for that. I think I am comfortable increasing this target with a clear understanding and expectation that it is, a real ambitious stretch, and we have significant funding in the climate bond to do this work. And so I think it is possible, but I also want to just make sure that we are clear-eyed. We might not get there. So I appreciate the council pushing us to try. and just want to make sure we're setting clear expectations in case we aren't able to achieve.
So just to clarify before opening it up to others, the proposal was to amend to up to 2,000 acres for kelp. So that'd be 3.3.2.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just looking to other council members if any additional. Okay, so we'll make that amendment 2, I guess. Looking to others for any additional comments. Councilmember Rocha, please.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just sort of make some broad comments. I just really want to express appreciation to Director Eckerle and the staff for all the hard work that went into this. I do feel like you really listened to the council when we encourage you to be ambitious, ensure there's clear performance measures, and also stay within the scope of what OPC controls. And so I just really appreciate all the hard work, particularly also all the outreach that was done. It's very evident from the public comments that were shared today that people actually felt like their voices were heard, and changes were made based on that input. And so I also applaud OPC on your continued commitment to partners and the strength that additional voices can bring to the table, and the evidence that's presented in the plan today. So nothing specific. I just wanted to express my appreciation to all you guys' hard work, and I'm really proud of the path that you've set forward for the state for the next 5 years.
Great, thank you, and very much second all of that. If no additional comments from others, I would just, say really appreciate all of the work from the staff and, all of the partners that have been informing the development of this plan over the last several years. Definitely it is an ambitious document. There's a lot of work that we continue to do, obviously in partnership with OPC, Cali PA Water Boards, Cal Recycle, WEHA, with many of the water quality and microplastic work in here, and really looking forward to that partnership. There's a often misattributed quote to Mark Twain, but it's if I had more time, this letter would be shorter. And the brevity and the clarity in this document really shows how much time was put into the development of this. So just want to say that. And if nothing else, I guess I would look for a motion for consideration for adoption and take this in 3 parts. The first one, let's say, first motion looking for just adoption of the strategic plan, and then we'll go with the second. Well, I guess, do we need to?
I think you can make a motion with the revision that includes the kelp increase target, and then a separate motion that includes the Tribal Marine Stewards Network revision, in which case Councilmember Rocha can recuse herself.
Perfect, thank you. So I would look for a motion on the first.
Move to adopt the 2026-2030 Ocean Protection Council strategic plan and direct staff to work with agency and other partners to implement the plan over the next 5 years.
Wonderful. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Great. Sarah, could you take the roll call, please?
Katie Landau,
Yes?
Carl Larson,
Yes.
Alexis Jackson,
Yes.
and Megan Rocha.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you. And then we would be looking at the proposed language with the Tribal Marine Steward Network for 2.1.2.
Do you want to have us pull that up on the screen, or?
That would be wonderful.
Is it possible to pull up my slide 18? While they're doing that, I'm happy to read. The revised objective 2.1.2 would read, by 2030, support the continued success and growth of the Tribal Marine Stewards Network by providing funding to sustain the existing 6-member tribes and further scale up the network with up to 3 new tribes participating.
And I apologize, before we make the vote, I will open up for discussion instead. And now that we have the language on the screen, we have of course lost our council member.
It's actually the slide after this one. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll move to amend the strategic plan with the modification to the Tribal Marine Steward Network on objective 2.1.2 as described on the slide that you are viewing.
Wonderful, thank you. Do I hear a second? We're looking for a second?
Second.
Thank you. And if you could please call the roll call.
Katie Landau,
Yes.
Carl Larson,
Yes.
and Alexis Jackson.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Great, thank you. And I believe then we'll be looking for just an updated version of the strategic plan in the coming days on the website for anyone who is interested in that. Great, thank you so much, and thank you to all the staff for all your work. And with that, we'll move on to the next item, which is Action 5, consideration and approval of disbursement of funds to the Ocean Science Trust for OPC Science Advisor. So, invite up Dr. Sree, Gopal, and joined by Dr. Bree Lindsay.
Great. Good afternoon, council members. My name is Sree Gopal, and today it's my pleasure to present an overview of the OPC Science Advisor and Science Advisory Team, or SAT, Secretariat, and recommend an ongoing investment for your consideration. I will be joined today by my colleague from Ocean Science Trust, Dr. Bree Lindsay, for this presentation. Next slide, please. Since 2007, Ocean Science Trust, or OST, has served as the science advisor to OPC, providing practical, actionable scientific guidance to inform policy management decisions that protect California's coast and ocean resources. So the California Ocean Protection Act, or COPA, authorized the OPC Science Advisor to co-chair the SAT and lead its formation. The SAT was formally established in February 2008, and since then, the OPC and OST partnership through the SAT has proven as a model for strengthening the application of cutting-edge science to inform recommendations and solutions in state decision-making. Next slide, please. With that, I'm going to hand over to Bree to describe past activities of the SAT and future priorities to advance this partnership.
Okay, that's it. Okay, thank you, Sree. And Chair and Council members, thank you for the privilege to speak on item number 5 today. My name is Bree Lindsay. I am the Deputy Director of California Ocean Science Trust. And as you've heard, Ocean Science Trust was created by the California State Legislature 25 years ago to support and bring world-class science and innovation together with policymakers to accelerate progress toward a healthy and resilient coast and ocean. In OST's role as OPC Science Advisor, this mission to strengthen the bridge between scientific research and sound ocean management lines up clearly with the charge of the OPC Science Advisory Team, the SAT, which Sree mentioned was defined in the California Ocean Protection Act as a team of distinguished scientists who would be convened to support OPC to draw from scientific expertise, to integrate science into decision-making, and to think ahead to emerging science issues relevant to the coast and ocean. Next slide, please. Since its formal establishment in 2008 as a partnership between OPC and OST, the SAT has yielded impactful science guidance, including recommendations and considerations on 30 by 30 in coastal waters, sea level rise, adaptation and planning, ocean acidification and hypoxia, and helping to establish the nation's first microplastics strategy, to name a few. Next slide, please. And all of this work has come through the diligent and time-intensive efforts of SAT members, with OPC's science advisor co-chairing the body. And the most recent membership of 20 distinguished scientists is listed here. Some of these members have served since the beginning, and others have rotated on more recently. All of them have contributed their knowledge and expertise directly to providing science considerations and insights to important OPC priorities over the years, and we wanted to take this moment to publicly thank them for their dedicated service. Next slide, please. Of course, the challenges facing the ocean today and in the future continue to grow in scale and complexity. Meanwhile, we're seeing shocks to the science landscape and are experiencing and anticipating future impacts to science capacity. These challenges are making it clearer than ever the need to access a broad range of scientific expertise, to the need to elevate tribal science and traditional knowledges, and the need to be hearing from an extensive network of expert voices when gathering guidance on paths forward. So we've been working together on articulating an updated model for the OPC SAT that can ensure access to many types of disciplinary expertise, institutional level awareness of the science landscape, and connection to a broad array of experts even within each discipline. Next slide, please. OST's existing mission to connect California's science enterprise with those making decisions about how to steward our ocean and coast resources supports this next evolution of OPC SAT. We envision shifting membership to emphasize network rather than individual representation, and building stronger connections to science and research institutions and networks, including tribal scientists and holders of traditional knowledges. This networked approach offers California expertise that spans membership rotation, flexible, timely engagement across a full breadth of California's science experts, opportunity to hear from more voices across and within disciplines, and insights at the level of science as a system. So thank you. I will pass it back to Sree to talk details.
Next slide, please. Thank you, Bree. And just to reiterate what Bree just mentioned, the new SAT will function as a modern, streamlined body designed to strengthen networks and connect OPC with California's research institutions and California Native American tribes. The group will be smaller. It'll be 10 to 12 members with a focus on institutional level information sharing and partnership building, rather than relying on subject matter expertise of individual members. It will also include members working in tribal science and natural resource management who can bring tribal science to bear on important scientific questions and who can build connections to traditional knowledge holders when appropriate. Next slide, please. So the SAT Secretariat's activities includes the launch of the updated SAT that I just described, and OST's collaboration with scientific community, tribes, and the public to strengthen delivery of actionable science. And the third would be to share highlights from SAT engagements at council meetings. Next slide, please. As OPC science advisor, OST facilitated working groups and panels have added tremendous value to science-based policymaking with recent scientific expertise to guide our efforts on 30 by 30, offshore wind, advancing social sciences in MPA monitoring, informing marine restoration, and facilitating topical workshops to address microplastic pollution. Next slide, please. With that, staff recommends that the council authorize up to $1,062,500 to the California Ocean Science Trust to support OPC Science Advisor and Secretariat activities. And I would also like to emphasize that this effort aligns with goals 1, 2, and 3 of our newly adopted 2026 to 2030 strategic plan. I'd like to thank you all for your time and happy to take questions.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much. At this time, I'd like to invite any members of the public who want to speak. Please come in person, please come up to the podium. And seeing none, I'd look to Sarah if there's any virtual speakers.
We have one virtual commenter, Chris Voss. Chris, you have the floor.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Chris Voss. I'm president of the Commercial Fishermen of Santa Barbara. And I have a small concern with respect to how this SAT is assembled. As a commercial fisherman, my interest is in making certain that a commercial fishing expertise is a part of this SAT process, so that when it comes to community engagement and involving community members in constructive ways that are very anxious to participate in data collection, it's done in a way that integrates well with the fisheries management that hopefully exists at the Department of Fish and Wildlife. And so if this organization could be used as a go-to for defining what data streams are essential for good decision-making around fisheries management, I think that would be really beneficial for all involved. So there are these frequent conversations around what data is best to inform quality decision-making that the stakeholders can produce, and I think that's something that the SAT could engage in to help inform the Department of Fish and Wildlife. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are no other commenters in the queue.
Great, thank you so much. And so with that, I'd just open discussion to council members. And, oh, yes, please, Councilmember Richa.
Yeah, I just have a question, and hopefully I can connect these dots appropriately. But I know there's a lot of work around community science, right? And social science that was referenced earlier in the working group around the MPA network. And I'm just sort of reflecting on the previous comment that was made as well about how do we sort of shore up that the SAT is sort of including or strengthening the partnerships both in the social science realm, but also in the community science piece as well. And my other question is sort of around when you go and seek folks to participate in this, really emphasizing like the connections those people have and that they will sort of bring a wide variety of the right people to the table, more so than a degree or particular expertise. Because all I see is a list of doctors, people with PhDs, and on the prior slide. And, you know, it's important that we have, again, as I've expressed many times before, a wider tent, right? And we get a broader voices and perspectives to the table. So sorry for sort of throwing two questions at you at the same time, but they're related.
No, definitely. Thank you. Jen?
Thank you so much for those comments. I'm going to start and then send it over to Dr. Whiteman. We could not agree more with your comments about needing to have a wider perspective and a bigger tent. That is the foundational intent of this refresh or update of our science advisory team. Really making sure that we're leaning into the broad expertise across the state, and that's people with PhDs and people without them who have local experience in all of the ways that we care about the ocean. So I will let Dr. Whiteman build a bit more on that. Just one other comment. We are really focused on both the social science component and currently right now there's an effort happening with the MPA social science working group. And our staff is leading the development of a community science strategy that will really serve as like a roadmap for how we do better, and really are pulling in all of those those data streams of expertise and using them in a way that helps us make better management and policy decisions.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just build on what's been said already, which is to say, you know, the prior SAT members, so fantastic, so committed, brought so much to the table and are very close colleagues. But the weight of responsibility on them, and there's only so much that they can bring as a group of 20. And it was previously designed as a body, generative body, that was responsible for bringing the best science advice that was limited to what those 20 people could bring to the table. And so it really is the opportunity with this new model to say the SAD is about a series of networked people who can bring the right expertise, the right voices, the right perspectives in the moment for the issue at hand, and be that connector into a much bigger tent and a much broader array of expertise and perspectives. And that, as Director Eckerle mentioned, is really a motivator for re-envisioning, so that it's not the responsibility of the SAT to produce, it's the responsibility of the SAT to tap into the network and connect to bring the voices to the table.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I like that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. If no additional council discussion, from after that, I would ask for a motion to adopt.
I'd like to move that we authorize to disperse up to $1,062,500 to the California Ocean Science Trust to support the Science Advisory Team Secretariat activities.
Hang on one second. I just got a note that I actually think maybe need to recuse.
I keep doing this. I recuse myself and take back my motion.
You are an overachiever.
Revoked, so I would look to another council member for a motion.
In which case I will make said motion verbatim to that.
Ditto. And then I would look to the remaining council member for a second if.
Yeah, I will second that.
Thank you. And Sarah, could you please call the roll, the vote roll?
Katie Landau,
Yes.
Carl Larson,
Yes.
and Megan Rocha.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Wonderful. Thank you. And so we'll now move on to item 6, which has 2 parts. There's an informational item from Save the Whales Coalition, and then we will have a second item, which is an action item for consideration and approval of disbursement of funds for SB1 Sea Level Rise Grant planning. So we will take, after both presentations, that's when we will do a joint public comment. And with that, I will hand it over.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, Council. My name is Ella McDougall, and I'm OPC's Climate Change Program Manager, and I'm pleased to introduce item 6A, an informational item, the Climate Vulnerability of California's Natural Surfing Capital, an OPC-funded project led by Save the Waves Coalition of Santa Cruz. I'm just giving the introduction today, and then I'll turn it over to the Save the Waves Coalition, who's here with us in person. Slide, please. The findings of this OPC-funded project give us new insight into a highly valuable part of California's coastline, the natural wave systems that support our coastal recreational economy, local businesses, and cultural identity. This project includes 3 major components: a vulnerability assessment of 31 surf breaks in Santa Cruz World Surfing Reserve to understand how sea level rise will alter wave quality and surfability, an economic valuation of Santa Cruz's surfing economy to quantify the financial importance of coastal recreation, and third, an equity and access analysis conducted in partnership with Black Surf Santa Cruz, examining barriers faced by historically excluded communities and how adaptation influences coastal access. Slide, please. This project directly advances OPC's goals to build resilience to sea level rise, improve understanding of climate impacts, and support California's sustainable coastal tourism economy. It is the first effort to integrate physical modeling, economic valuation, community access to understand how sea level rise will affect surf breaks and the recreation economy they support, including Santa Cruz's $150 million annual surfing economy. Having wrapped up 6 months ago, this pilot project provides a transferable methodology for assessing climate access and risk to recreation, something that has broad implications not just for surf breaks, but for beaches, access ways, coastal tourism, businesses, and the wider recreational economy across California. And with that, I will hand it over to our partners with Save the Waves Coalition. Thank you.
Thank you, Ella, for the introduction. All right, thank you, Ocean Protection Council, for hearing from us today, and thank you very much for funding this project. Looking into surf breaks and having some state buy-in is really showing how important surf breaks are to California. I want to give a huge thank you to Integral Consulting and Black Surf Santa Cruz, who are our partners on this, as well as to the City of Santa Cruz, who helped support this project. My name is Sean Burns. I'm with Save the Waves Coalition. I'm born and raised in Santa Cruz, so this was a very meaningful project to me. And to be honest, it was a bit of an interesting project because it was tricky to put a value to something that's so priceless, like surfing. Speaking for myself and a lot of surfers, you know, it's a very priceless sport. So it's really important to put a price tag to these surf breaks, but it was a little bit of an interesting task. So next slide, we have a 1-minute video that is a quick overview of our project. Thank you. Next slide. So as this project, one of our goals was to have outreach and awareness. And so along with this video, we had another 6-minute video as well as social cut downs to really get this results of this project out there through social media. So Save the Waves, who are we? We're an international nonprofit based in Santa Cruz, California. We have world surfing reserves, 13 of them around the world, Australia, Central America, in Europe, and we also have 2 in California, in Malibu and Santa Cruz, where this project took place. Next slide, please. So a little bit of surfing at scale. From pre-project, estimated 35 million surfers worldwide. If you're a surfer, you definitely know that number has exponentially gone up. There's way more surfers in the water. International surf tourism is estimated at around $64.9 billion, so that's surfonomics at a global scale. This project looked at surfing economics at a smaller scale in Santa Cruz, California. A little bit like why surfing? Surfing is California's state sport. There's over 800 miles along that coast, and with those 800 miles, there's 300 named surf spots. 31 of those we analyzed in this project in Santa Cruz. A little fun fact, in 1885, the first ever documented surf session was in Santa Cruz by 3 Hawaiian princes that came here to study. So there's a lot of tradition through surfing in Santa Cruz. Next slide, please. So where this project took place, the Santa Cruz World Surfing Reserve, it's a dedicated area with a local stewardship council with a big tent, as you were talking about, of surfers, city personnel, scientists, local business owners, making sure everyone is a part of this dedicated area. So for this project, we broke it up into the west side, midtown, and east side. So 31 surf breaks. Very diverse range of breaks like Steamer Lane that are world-class waves. Places like Cowles that are really accessible and easy for beginners. And so 31 of these breaks we analyzed in this project site. Next slide, please. Project objectives. So what we got out of this project, we quantified Santa Cruz surfing economy. You saw that number on the screen, 194.7 million economic revenue just off surfing in Santa Cruz. We assessed the vulnerabilities of Santa Cruz surf breaks, so we got the surfability, which was a really exciting aspect of this project and how it's diminishing with sea level rise. We identified sociocultural and economic barriers, made sure all voices of the surfing community were heard through this project. And why we're here today is that we wanted to come up and guide recommendations for adaptations and strategies for coastal policy. Next slide, please. And with that, thank you for hearing from us today. I'm going to pass it to my colleague, Trent Hodges.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, council members. My name is Trent Hodges, and I was the lead for this collaborative project, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. I will be detailing the different elements of this project and presenting our final conclusions. Our detailed economic analysis found that there are 780,000 surf visits to Santa Cruz County every year, showing that surfing is incredibly popular. Combining our analysis of surf trip expenditure and broader spending, surfing has a total economic value of at least $194.7 million in Santa Cruz, and this is a conservative estimate based on our assumptions and methodology. And these results really show that the Santa Cruz surfing economy is strong, and waves and surfing are a big draw for people to come to the coast. I also wanted to add that these results are a product of a years-long public survey and detailed economic analysis by our partner Eckerle Consulting. And there are many more socioeconomic details in the report. Next slide, please. With the support of the Ocean Protection Council, we created a first-of-its-kind surf break vulnerability assessment utilizing oceanographic data sets and surf break characterization to create a detailed model of the impact of sea level rise on waves. In summary, with just 1 foot of sea level rise, only 7 surf breaks of 31 are considered surfable for more than half of daylight hours, showing that surf breaks are at risk if we do not manage and adapt. As part of our analysis, we analyzed the impact of different adaptation strategies and found that managed retreat would maintain the greatest benefit for waves over the long term. However, not all surf breaks are impacted equally, and different breaks may require different adaptation measures depending on a variety of geophysical factors. Sea level rise will also impact accessibility. As certain surf breaks are lost to sea level rise, some will likely become overcrowded and create challenging environments for marginalized communities, beginners, and others, as well as put a strain on coastal infrastructure. Next slide, please. The vulnerability of surf breaks to climate change and sea level rise will impact the Santa Cruz economy greatly as well. The graph above displays the present-day value of the 3 surfing regions in Santa Cruz, as well as the economic loss by each foot of sea level rise. So we see that as sea level rise continues foot by foot, Santa Cruz stands to lose tens of millions of dollars in revenue annually. On the bright side, our analysis shows that adaptation measures can lessen this impact, with managed retreat and sand management strategies, to name a few, providing the greatest benefits over the long term. Next slide, please. This project took a community-wide approach to understanding surfing as it exists in Santa Cruz. We convened a local surf conditions expert panel that provided critical information on tides and wave characteristics for the surf break vulnerability assessment. And our partner Black Surf Santa Cruz led a series of workshops with the Santa Cruz BIPOC community to understand existing barriers to access. They developed an important list of recommended policy actions to address these barriers, which are detailed in our report as well. Next slide, please. In summary, all surf breaks in Santa Cruz are vulnerable to climate change and associated sea level rise, and the extent of this change will largely be determined by adaptation and management into the future. We see that surfing has immense economic value in Santa Cruz, and surfing resources can often fall through the gaps in coastal policy and need to be effectively managed and valued for the resources that they are. We believe this example that we've been able to do with Ocean Protection Council support can provide the foundation of a statewide framework for effective protection and management of surf ecosystems. Next slide, please. In our report, we highlight some recommended policy frameworks to protect surfing resources. We strongly believe that additional tools are needed beyond the Coastal Act to protect surfing resources in this era of climate change. We would greatly appreciate the opportunity to continue working with the Ocean Protection Council on this project, and we have received considerable interest from diverse coastal communities, municipalities, and others who are interested in doing this type of project in their own community because they see how important and valuable it is. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, we encourage council members with all of your immense time to read this very long report that details all the findings. And again, we have a 5-minute longer video that summarizes this project. And next slide, please. And just wanted to give a sincere thank you for the support for this project. It's been an honor to do this, and we think that this has some great implications for how to manage surfing into the future in the era of sea level rise. So thank you very much.
Thank you both for presenting and for all of the work with putting together the report. And with that, we'll move to item 6B. So invite Megan.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Megan Williams, Coastal Resilience Program Manager at OPC, and today I am presenting on item 6B, which is the 7th round of SB1 Sea Level Rise Adaptation Planning Grant Program Awards, including 4 new planning projects and a proposed augmentation to continue OPC's Senate Bill 1 Technical Assistance Program. Next slide, please. So as a quick overview and recap of the program, the SB1 grant program provides funding for coastal communities to develop consistent sea level rise adaptation plans and projects, building resilience along the entire California coast and San Francisco Bay. We do this through 2 tracks. Track 1 supports pre-planning, data collection, and planning efforts, and Track 2 supports implementation projects. Track 1 opened for rolling proposal submissions in December 2023, and we are continuing to accept them every quarter. And Track 2 was approved by the Council in September of 2025 at our previous Council meeting and is expected to open soon once the remaining administrative steps are complete, one of which is item 9, consideration approval of Prop 4 emergency regulations later this afternoon. Additionally, we have our Sea Level Rise Tribal Cultural Resources Funding Program, a dedicated funding track for California Native American tribes to assess and plan for sea level rise impacts to cultural resources and ancestral lands. Since launch, through the first 6 rounds, OPC has approved 30 projects totaling about $30.6 million in SB1 investments, creating a strong foundation for sea level rise planning across the outer coast and San Francisco Bay. Next slide, please. Alongside the SB1 grant program, OPC launched the SB1 Technical Assistance Program in 2023 as a 2-year pilot to ensure that communities, especially small, rural, disadvantaged, and tribal, can successfully access SB1 funding through direct application support. The program is administered by Coastal Quest, which leads a multidisciplinary team including Farallon Strategies, Indigenous Justice, multiple regional climate collaboratives, and UC Santa Barbara. Together, they provide tailored support with project scoping, application development, community and tribal engagement, budgeting, post-award readiness, and broader outreach and education to expand awareness of SB1 opportunities. OPC staff work closely with this team to support consistent communication and adaptive management. Over its first 2 years, this pilot has been highly effective. 94% of fully supported applicants have received SB1 awards, totaling more than $17 million, with nearly half awarded to disadvantaged or tribal communities. The team also supports applicants under the Sea Level Rise Tribal Cultural Resources Funding Program, ensuring tribes have equitable and culturally grounded access to SB1 resources. As we prepare to launch Track 2 implementation funding, we anticipate the need and interest for this type of technical assistance to only continue to grow. Next slide, please. So with that support structure in place, here is what we saw in this latest application cycle. For this 7th round of funding, we received 6 Track 1 planning proposals requesting a total of about $4.43 million. All proposals went through our standard administrative and technical review conducted by OPC staff in collaboration with either the California Coastal Commission or the San Francisco BCDC staff, depending on the project area's location. This ensures projects meet SB1 solicitation criteria and advances SB 272 planning requirements, which requires all coastal local governments to adopt sea level rise plans by 2034. Following this review, 2 proposals did not meet the criteria, with ultimately 4 proposals recommended for funding today. Next slide, please. These 4 recommended Track 1 planning projects are shown here, along with a proposed augmentation for the SB1 Technical Assistance Program. These 4 projects reflect a range of coastal and Bay Area planning needs, including adaptation pathways planning in Arcata, LCP updates in Pismo Beach, a full vulnerability assessment in Newport Beach, and a multi-jurisdictional sub-regional shoreline adaptation plan for Sonoma County's San Francisco Bay shoreline in collaboration with the city of Petaluma. And at the bottom of the table, you will see the recommended $1 million augmentation for Coastal Quest to extend the SB1 Technical Assistance Program for another 2 years through 2027. Next slide, please. Altogether, staff recommends that the council authorize the disbursement of up to $3,616,941 to fund the 4 Track 1 planning projects and to extend the SB1 Technical Assistance Program through 2027. Collectively, these investments will expand the reach and impact of SB1, ensure that coastal and tribal communities have equitable access to state resources and technical support, and continue to move us toward the 2034 Sea Level Rise planning requirements under SB 272. Next slide, please. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Wonderful, thank you so much. So at this time, I would just like to invite any members of the public in the room up to the podium to speak, and seeing none, I'd look to Sarah. Do we have any public commenters in the virtual queue?
We do. We have 4 commenters. Our first commenter is Emma Kuzi, followed by Emiko Ines. Emma, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Council, and hello all. My name is Emma Kuzi, and I am here representing Coastal Quest. Coastal Quest is a 501c3 nonprofit, and we're dedicated to accelerating solutions for building resilient coastal communities for people, nature, and the climate. As Megan mentioned, we are also the lead project manager and technical assistance provider carrying out OPC's SB1 Technical Assistance Program. We want to take this opportunity to thank OPC and OPC staff for supporting this work. As Megan mentioned, prior to the results coming out of funding recommendations today, we are so happy to have worked with OPC and our wonderful partners to help entities secure over $17 million through TA, accounting for approximately half of total dollars awarded to date under the SB1 grant program. Today, we are so excited to see even more TA recipients recommended for funding, and needless to say, we are thrilled at the prospect of continuing this work that we are so passionate about. We also want to take this opportunity to thank our incredible partners that Megan mentioned. Thank you, Indigenous Justice, for offering critical tailored outreach and engagement, to Farallon Strategies for offering your incredible high-touch technical assistance, and our other engagement partners at the Bay Area Regional Climate Collaborative, the San Diego Regional Climate Collaborative, and Los Angeles Regional Collaborative. We also want to thank Dr. Charles Lester of UC Santa Barbara for working with us to adaptively manage the program for TA recipients so that we can continuously improve our services. It has been a great pleasure to work with these partners and with the project team at OPC to implement the program. We are extremely grateful to the OPC project team for their accessibility, creativity in developing this program, and their dedication to helping entities plan for and mitigate the effects of sea level rise. Thank you so much, Megan, Ella, and Olivia in particular, and thank you all for your time.
Our next speaker is Emiko Ines, followed by Heidi Netters. Emiko, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Emiko Ines. I am the Coastal Resilience Project Manager from LA County Department of Beaches and Harbors. We are the recipient of OPC's SB1 grant for the LA County Regional Coastal Strategic Adaptation Plan. The grant was executed in May this year, enabling us to move towards a long-term coastal resilience plan created collaboratively with local jurisdictions and communities for a shared goal of protecting iconic LA beaches and public access. We appreciate the council for funding our important climate change adaptation effort. We also appreciate the technical assistance team, Coastal Quest, for helping us prepare a winning grant proposal. We learned about the TA during one of the grant webinars, and we were glad to have worked with them. The TA team made a lot of effort understanding our project and was instrumental in refining our proposal to be more aligned with the grant goals and criteria by providing thorough review and feedback in an expedited manner. They are knowledgeable about the grant program and passionate about helping agencies like us secure funding for coastal resilience projects for a better future. With our experience working with Coastal Quest as TA for the SB1 grant, we strongly endorse continuation of their work leading OPC's SB1 grant technical assistance program so that we can keep receiving their meaningful assistance to secure funding for sea level rise adaptation planning and implementation projects. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Heidi Netters, followed by Monica Kroc. Heidi, you have the floor.
Hello, good afternoon, Council. My name is Heidi Netters. I am a Principal Program Manager at the San Francisco Estuary Partnership. The Estuary Partnership is part of the National Estuary Program and created through the Clean Water Act. We are housed within a regional government agency, the Association of Bay Area Governments, and the Metropolitan Transportation Commission. Our program has a federal mandate to protect and restore the nationally significant San Francisco Estuary. We were pleased to be one of the projects approved through the Senate Bill 1 Sea Level Rise Adaptation Planning Grant Program on September 30th, 2025. The East Bay Crescent Subregional Vulnerability Assessment and Shoreline Adaptation Planning Project will be led in partnership with the cities of Emeryville, Berkeley, and Albany to prepare a regional shoreline adaptation plan for these cities. We received technical assistance through Coastal Quest in our original application submittal in December of 2024 and our resubmittal in June 2025, which led to our approved application. Coastal Quest was there every step of the way. They provided coordination support to link our application with a connected application with the City of Alameda. This application was highly complex due to the number of jurisdictions involved. They provided extensive technical guidance and helped in myriad ways to draft the application. The Coastal Quest TA team were available and responsive throughout the project. Their incredible subject matter expertise was invaluable and crucial for our successful application. Thanks for supporting Coastal Quest to provide TA to local government partner applicants. We are excited to work with OPC to deliver planning for the shoreline that is rooted in community vision and forward-thinking ideas. Thank you.
The next speaker is Monica Kroc, followed by the final speaker, Lisa Sherman. Monica, you have the floor.
Hello again. My name is Monica Kroc, and I'm the Executive Director of the Greater Farallones Association. Greater Farallones Association conserves the wildlife and habitats of Greater Farallones Corridor Bank and the Northern Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuaries through science, education, and restoration. Greater Farallones Association coordinates the North Central California Coastal Sediment Coordination Committee, a partnership of 17 state, federal, and local agencies working across 300 miles of shoreline, representing nearly a quarter of California's coast. The Sediment Committee provides an essential forum for interagency collaboration, shared science, and implementation of coastal resilient projects at scale. Greater Farallones Association strongly supports the proposed SB1 disbursements, especially the disbursement for Sonoma County, a member of the Sediment Committee, and Coastal Quest for ensuring equitable access to state funds. Thank you.
The final speaker is Lisa Sherman. Lisa, you have the floor. Lisa, you are on mute.
Can you hear me? Hello,
Yes.
My name is Lisa Sherman, and okay, thanks. And I'm an enrolled tribal member of the Ipai Nation of Santa Isabel Nation. I am also a founder of the Tribal Sacred Waters. It's a new nonprofit, pending nonprofit. We're focused on conservation, education, and sustaining concerning ocean waters and our native rights. And then I wanted to mention, out of 109 federally recognized tribes in California, we are grateful that OPC is formed partnerships with 6 tribes. However, we believe that there should be more involvement in tribal waters, particularly since we are on unceded land and waterways. as a right now, I'm currently self-funded organization. We face challenges in applying for grants due to strict regulations, and some license issues are restricted. I am eager to collaborate more closely with OPC. My tribe has supported me in becoming the tribal representative over here. We're located in San Diego County, and I have a dedicated team and board composed of all tribal members and one doctor who is an ally to Native people into reconnecting our ancestral seawaters. I fully support OPC and appreciate the efforts to open up tribal representation, and I believe we need to enhance our tribal partnerships moving forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you to all the speakers or the commenters. So at this time, I just want to invite discussion from the council on both items 6A and 6B. Please.
On 6B, a comment and a question. The first, I think it's just really rewarding as a council member to see the high return on investment of investments in the technical assistance program. Those are the kind of statistics that's really helpful to hear, and I'm glad that we're continuing to make to propose additional investments in that program. And then the question is about the Pismo Beach proposal. I noticed that they've had some additional funds in hand, and I'm wondering what kind of considerations we're making or how we're handling either prioritizing or deprioritizing proposals that come with funding, and then also just acknowledging that they also didn't have a disadvantaged community. So I'm just wondering how we weigh some of these different factors and proposals.
That's a good question. This one did have a unique aspect to it, and having a previously funded grant with the Coastal Commission. This one is really unique as an SB1 grant if it's funded, in that it is really a complementary effort to that already previously funded effort there. That was a lot of discussion with the Coastal Commission, looking to them and recognizing that all communities, even if they're not disadvantaged, but all coastal communities do have this requirement to adopt an adaptation plan and on the outer coast have it put into their LCP. So still wanting to support those efforts, and again in collaboration and with the backing of the Coastal Commission for that project. That was a lot of the discussion related to that one. I think the TA program itself is one of our levers that we pull to ensure that we are not leaving behind the disadvantaged communities that do need that funding and maybe need a little bit of the extra support to secure those initial funds. But every single round, when we look at these budgets, when we look at the needs and the actual data collection that they say that needs to be a part of their project for their adaptation plan, we really, really look at that, scrutinize it, and determine if this is an actual must-have to get those adaptation plans across the finish line and moving forward, because we do recognize there is a limitation of funding, and there's some that you can plan and plan and plan, and you can never be done, but there are some areas that really need, that funding as well. So it is always a consideration. We, in I think 2 of these ones, did reduce the budget and pulled a few of those pieces that we didn't think were as necessary to, again, get them across the finish line, because, again, just recognizing there's a lot of coastal land and there's a lot of planning that needs to be done, and we want to be mindful of the funds that we have.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? So with that, then I would ask for a motion on item 6B.
Let me try this again. I'd like to make a motion to authorize to disperse funds to the grantees who submitted successful applications to the Senate Bill 1 Sea Level Rise Adaptation Planning Grant Program for sea level rise adaptation planning projects, and to augment the Senate Bill 1 Technical Assistance Program.
Seconded.
Thank you. And Sarah, could you please take the roll call vote?
Katie Landau,
Yes.
Carl Larson,
Yes.
Alexis Jackson,
Yes.
and Megan Rocha.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Great, thank you. So now we're going to move on to item 7A. Actually, so the next two items are both informational items, and they are on the progress that we've made to implement both the equity plan and OPC's tribal engagement strategy. So like the last one, we are going to hear from both presentations first, and then we will take combined public comment and discussion after the second item. So with that, please, Maria.
Thank you. Good afternoon, council members. I'm Maria Rodriguez, OPC's Climate and Environmental Justice Program Manager. And today I'm presenting an informational item on OPC's Equity Plan Assessment, our first full progress report update since the plan was adopted in 2022. I'll briefly share why the assessment was developed and how it's organized. Then I'll highlight key outcomes across the 4 goal areas and the priority actions that will guide our work over the next several years. Next slide, please. The assessment advances OPC's 2020-2025 strategic plan, specifically Goal 2, focused on expanding access to state resources, improving community benefits, and reaching underserved communities. It was also shaped to align with OPC's new 2026-2030 strategic plan so that reporting, community engagement, and implementation continue seamlessly under shared goals around community benefits, access, and outcomes. Next slide, please. OPC adopted its equity plan in 2022 as a roadmap for increasing community participation, improving access to funding, supporting tribal and local leadership, and ensuring the programs deliver meaningful benefits across California's coast and ocean. The equity plan is organized around 4 interconnected goals. Goal 1, expanding community participation and access to funding. Goal 2, building an inclusive workplace and workforce. Goal 3, policymaking informed by community and tribal perspectives. Goal 4, science and research that involve and are led by tribes and local communities. The plan called initially for a biannual or 2-year assessment, but as information was collected, it became clear that progress since adoption provided a fuller picture. So for that reason, this assessment reflects 2022 through 2024 with some 2025 updates and is intended to support ongoing accountability. Next slide, please. This is the first time OPC has compiled progress across all 4 goal areas in one place. It summarizes what has changed since 2022 and begins to establish a clear structure for tracking outcomes moving forward. The assessment was developed collaboratively by OPC and Better World Group with meaningful input from the Environmental Justice Advisory Board. Members participated in goal area discussions, identified where baselines and metrics could be strengthened, and offered feedback that helps shape how progress is organized and communicated. It also reflects contributions from OPC staff, grantees, and partners, including insights gathered through the Public Engagement and Partnership Survey and the Strategic Plan Update process. Together, these inputs shape the assessment into both a reflection of progress and a roadmap for future improvement. Next slide, please. The assessment is organized by the 4 goal areas, with each section providing indicators, short narratives, and examples of implementation progress across programs and funding. Each goal also includes a future metrics for consideration section that highlights where data gaps and reporting can be strengthened, such as tracking funding reach, community benefits, and post-project outcomes. The assessment concludes with a set of focused priorities that will guide OPC's implementation efforts for the next 2 to 5 years. Next slide. Turning now to implementation outcomes, I'll start with Goal 1. Between 2022 and 2024, OPC awarded roughly $100 million across programs. Of that funding that could be quantified, an estimated 45% supported projects providing direct benefits to tribes, disadvantaged communities, and other priority populations. Efforts launched or expanded during this period, such as the EJ Small Grants Program, The SB1 Technical Assistance Program and updates to grant guidelines help reduce barriers for smaller or first-time applicants. Looking ahead, the goal is to better track who funding reaches, what community benefits projects create, and what is learned once projects are completed. Proposition 4, the Climate Bond, offers an important opportunity to model this tracking statewide. Next slide. The Engagement and Partnership Survey provided a broader view of who interacts with OPC programs. There were 147 respondents, including nonprofits, community groups, tribes, researchers, agencies, and other partners. 60% said it was easy or very easy to learn about and apply for OPC grants. 17% reported challenges, mainly related to limited capacity or time-intensive application requirements. 82% of those who received technical assistance rated it effective or very effective. 38% of respondents had received OPC funding, many beginning in 2023 or later. Among these funding recipients, 80% served communities with higher climate impacts or fewer resources, including tribal communities, coastal and fishing communities, and state-defined disadvantaged and severely disadvantaged communities, with several respondents also noting work with youth, rural communities, and families with limited English proficiency. This feedback helped highlight where OPC's outreach and support are working well, and where improvements such as expanded language access can further strengthen participation. Next slide. Goal 2 focuses on OPC's internal capacity and its role in supporting a diverse coastal and ocean workforce. Nearly 1/3 of OPC staff have distinct roles that spend at least half of their time on work that supports community priorities, tribal partnerships, and environmental justice. All staff duty statements include responsibilities connected to this work, and OPC builds staff capacity through regular deep dives and trainings, including tribal engagement, cultural humility, public engagement, and facilitation. Early career pathways continue to grow. Since 2021, more than 23 undergraduate interns and several fellows have contributed to OPC's work, helping open doors for students interested in coastal and ocean careers. Looking ahead, the focus is on better tracking workforce pathways, understanding how staff apply training in daily work, and identifying support that helps sustain an inclusive coastal and ocean workforce. Next slide. Goal 3 focuses on how community and tribal perspectives help inform OPC's decisions and council processes. Every staff recommendation includes a section describing potential benefits for tribes and communities that face higher climate risks or have fewer resources. Hybrid council meetings have expanded participation statewide, with steady growth in written and live public comments. The Environmental Justice Advisory Board plays a key advisory role on major OPC initiatives, as well as project-level advisory groups such as those supporting MPA outreach, kelp management, and beach resiliency. Bring local knowledge and lived experience into project design and implementation. Future tracking under Goal 3 will aim to improve how OPC measures participation in council and advisory processes, and how partner input informs state program and policy decisions. Next slide. Goal 4 centers on science and research that reflect community priorities, local knowledge, and tribal perspectives. OPC has increasingly centered tribal and community-led or informed research through its solicitations since 2022, including the recent 30 by 30 request for proposals, which includes a $4 million set aside for tribally-led research and restoration. OPC has also supported tribally-led stewardship through the Tribal Marine Stewards Network and contributed funding to CNRA's Tribal Nature-Based Solutions Program. OPC and the Ocean Science Trust are updating the science advisory team structure to broaden representation and strengthen how diverse expertise informs state-supported science. OPC is also developing a community science strategy to expand community-driven monitoring and ensure science efforts reflect traditional knowledges and local expertise. Future metrics will track who leads research, how tribes and communities are involved, and how findings are shared in clear, accessible formats. Next slide. So looking ahead, this assessment shows that meaningful progress has been made throughout the years, and that the equity plan provides a strong foundation for how OPC delivers on community benefits, tribal priorities, and improving environmental justice outcomes statewide. The next phase of implementation will focus on strengthening accountability, improving tracking, and deepening the impact of this work as OPC aligns more closely with the 2026-2030 strategic plan. Several priorities rise to the top: improving data and tracking, reducing barriers to funding, strengthening staff capacity and workforce pathways, deepening collaboration with tribal and community partners, expanding support for research and stewardship led by tribes and local communities, and improving accessibility, including clearer communication tools and expanded language access. Future equity plan reporting will align with strategic plan reporting to create a more coordinated and transparent approach across programs. Next slide. This assessment serves as both a reflection and a roadmap, and OPC will continue to sustain progress, strengthen partnerships, and apply lessons learned to drive lasting benefits for California's coast, ocean, and communities that depend on them. And with that, thank you for your time, and I'd like to invite Hallie to the podium before we take any questions.
Good afternoon, council members and members of the public. My name is Hallie Brown, and I am the 2025 Biodiversity Sea Grant Fellow at OPC. Over the course of my 11 months here at OPC, I've been honored to support and expand OPC's work to meaningfully engage with tribes and advance tribal priorities for the coast and ocean. Today, I'm excited to share with you a brief update on the progress made on OPC's work to implement the tribal engagement strategy and strengthen partnerships with California Native American tribes. Provide a little bit more detail to what Maria spoke to in her presentation. Next slide, please. California Native American tribes have inhabited and stewarded the lands and waters we now call California since time immemorial. Despite a history of state-sponsored genocide, exploitation, violence, and dispossession of land, tribes have never ceded their obligations to steward their ancestral territories. Recent state policy, including Executive Orders B-1011, N-1519, and the Newsom administration's Statement of Administration Policy on Native American ancestral lands, have acknowledged the historical wrongs perpetrated by the state against California tribes and have directed state agencies to strengthen partnerships and government-to-government relationships with California tribes. These goals are reflected in Objective 2.1 of OPC's 2020 to 2025 strategic plan, as well as the newly adopted 2026 to 2030 strategic plan in Objective 2.1. Next slide, please. In January 2023, OPC adopted its first ever tribal engagement strategy, which was developed in consultation and collaboration with tribes from 2021 to 2022. The strategy provides a framework for enhanced partnership between OPC and tribes for the stewardship of the coast and ocean. The tribal engagement strategy was developed to be complementary to OPC's equity plan and specifically focuses on government-to-government relationships and direct engagement between OPC and sovereign California Native American tribes. Over the last 3 years, implementation of the strategy has primarily focused on 3 core areas: institutionalizing meaningful tribal engagement in OPC practices, providing funding to support tribal priorities, and developing policy to advance tribal stewardship. Next slide, please. Institutionalizing meaningful, respectful, and effective engagement with tribes is a foundational part of creating strong and lasting partnerships. Since the adoption of the tribal engagement strategy, OPC has worked to embed the principles, best practices, and approaches outlined in the strategy into OPC processes and programs. This has included increasing staff capacity through hiring dedicated tribal affairs personnel, holding regular staff trainings and bi-weekly tribal affairs office hours for staff, and developing shared internal resources for staff. This has also included inviting early, often, and meaningful consultation on the development of new policies and programs in alignment with CNRA's tribal consultation policy, as well as going beyond the consultation process and increasing informal communication with tribes. Next slide, please. Providing dedicated funding for tribes is a key commitment within the tribal engagement strategy and is an essential part of addressing historical wrongs and strengthening partnerships with tribes. Since 2022, OPC has provided close to $15 million in funding to support tribally led science, tribal stewardship, land return, and tribal access to the ocean through programs such as the Tribal Marine Stewards Network, the Tribal Nature-Based Solutions Program, and the SB1 Tribal Cultural Resources Grant Program. OPC is also working to reduce barriers to accessing state funding for tribes, including through dedicating specific funds for tribes to reduce competition with higher resourced entities and providing dedicated technical assistance to support tribes in navigating grant application processes. Next slide, please. The Tribal Engagement Strategy also recognizes that tribal expertise and knowledges are critical in achieving OPC's mission to protect and restore California's coast and ocean, and committed OPC to working in close collaboration with tribes to support tribal stewardship through OPC's unique role as a state policy lead. Policy achievements over the last few years include the inclusion of tribal stewardship areas as 30 by 30 conservation areas, and the recognition of the Chumash Heritage National Marine Sanctuary as a 30 by 30 conservation area. OPC is also working towards the inclusion and improved recognition of tribal scientists and knowledge holders on scientific working groups and policy advisory bodies, as you've heard a bit about today. These currently include the Marine Protected Areas Social Science Working Group and the MPA Statewide Leadership Team. Next slide, please. OPC has made meaningful progress on the commitments and actions outlined in the Tribal Engagement Strategy. However, we still have a lot of work to do to more meaningfully include tribes, tribal priorities, and tribal perspectives throughout OPC's work. Looking ahead, OPC will build on the progress made over the last 3 years, specifically with an eye towards continuing to strengthen internal capacity, increasing the consideration of tribal science, knowledges, and perspectives on ocean and coastal management decisions, providing more funding and advancing policy to support tribal stewardship, science, and access to the coast. And finally, refining and regularly tracking key metrics to facilitate the evaluation of implementation progress on the strategy. Importantly, these priorities are reflected in OPC's new 2026 to 2030 strategic plan. Ultimately, we know that our continued work to strengthen OPC's engagement with tribes is essential to protecting California's coast and ocean and helping people and nature thrive together. We are grateful for the partnership of California Native American tribes, and we look forward to the work ahead. Next slide, please. With that, thank you so much, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much. So I would open it up to public comment for anyone in the room, and not seeing any. Sarah, do we have any virtual public commenters on item 7A or 7B?
We do. We have Chris Voss followed by Irene Farr. Chris, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Chris Voss, president of the Commercial Fishermen of Santa Barbara. I have an idea how to make my community more diverse in a constructive, quality way. To become a commercial fisherman, you need a boat, you need a slip, and you need a permit. And we're experiencing permits being permanently revoked from fishermen in our community that have limited access permits that aren't being reissued by the Department of Fish and Wildlife. And this situation creates an opportunity for a thoughtful way to reintroduce these permits back into use. And I think if we think constructively and strategically, we can develop a program that takes these permits with intention and reintroduces them to resource challenged and tribal interests in a way that can benefit fishing communities and coastal communities in an effort to diversify and increase opportunity for both underserved and tribal interests. So these permits are there and available. The other challenges associated with a boat and a slip can be overcome, I believe, if we start by allocating these permits to individuals within these communities in a way that enables them to be successful. And our association at the port level is uniquely positioned to help facilitate and maybe coordinate a pilot project And so my kind of plea is if the Environmental Justice Advisory Board has any interest in collaborating with CFSB on trying to implement a strategy like this, it'd be great if they could reach out to our organization. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Irene Farr, followed by Morgan Canella. Irene, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Irene Takako-Farr, and I'm calling from Los Angeles on behalf of Better World Group. We're really proud to be the OPC grantee supporting implementation of the equity plan, which is a continuation of our previous partnership with OPC to support development of the plan itself. I just wanted to offer congratulations to OPC staff and the council on reaching 2 years of equity plan and tribal engagement strategy implementation. I remember when the equity plan was adopted in October 2023, we understood the really significant effort and systemic changes that would be required to carry out so many of the commitments outlined. So yeah, just congratulations. I also wanted to share or just highlight the substantial work behind the equity plan assessment. It involved developing new criteria and metrics, leading data collection to inform those metrics, and coordination across OPC's program areas and with the EJ Advisory Board. And with all of that effort, we can really clearly see how that work has translated into meaningful benefits for communities across California and how it will continue to drive the community outcomes that are still needed in the years ahead. I think Councilmember Jackson made a really powerful point earlier about ambition, and I think that is especially relevant here. And the work is both significant and essential, especially now. And finally, I wanted to say thank you to Director Eckerle, Deputy Director Kalua, Maria, the rest of the OPC staff and the council for continuing to prioritize the equity plan and for leading an effort that's not only groundbreaking but for OPC, but also a model for other agencies seeking to begin or strengthen their equity work. And also say thank you to the EJ Advisory Board for your guidance and contributions through the process. So I realize I'm at time. I just wanted to finally say that all of this leadership and collaboration really demonstrates how the state can continue to advance equity and communicate effectively with communities on these issues and how the state's investments are moving forward. So thank you again.
Our next speaker is Morgan Canella, followed by Lisa Sherman. Morgan, you have the floor.
Hi, good afternoon, Council. My name is Morgan Murphy-Canella, and I'm the Education Director for Reef Check and our Dive into Science program. And I'm tuning in from Fort Bragg, Mendocino County. I want to express our support for OPC's continued commitment to advancing equity, tribal engagement, and community-driven science as outlined in the Equity Plan Assessment and Tribal Engagement Strategy. These priorities directly align with the work we do through our Dive into Science program, which provides marine science and scientific scuba training for foster youth, tribal youth, and underrepresented coastal communities. Our Dive into Science program removes barriers and increases ocean access by providing equipment, training, mentorship, and hands-on stewardship. We partner with tribal communities, including tribal natural resource departments and community organizations, to integrate traditional knowledge, support pathways into environmental careers, and build long-term capacity for community-led kelp monitoring. This mirrors OPC's goals in expanding equitable funding, supporting community-led stewardship, and strengthening tribally informed data collection. Reef Check is grateful for OPC's leadership, and we look forward to continuing to work together to ensure that ocean stewardship in California is accessible, inclusive, and grounded in both science and culture. So thank you.
Our final speaker is Lisa Sherman. Lisa, you have the floor.
Hi, again, this is Lisa Sherman from Tribal Sacred Waters, Inc. I would like to just mention also what the gentleman was stating before, how hard it is to be successful with the fish industry, how they have a lot of things restricted, and there's not one Native American out there that's commercial fishing right now. And this is our ancestral waters. So there's like I don't know, a passed down way of them passing down licenses, but again, this is like hard to, get this to our people who have lost the ways of, like catching a fish, cleaning a fish. Those are the things that we would like, you guys to take into consideration. Again, this is my organization is self-funded right now, but we would like to have those conversations, be that voice. For some reason, our tribal people didn't step up. I don't know what happened, or they weren't invited enough, but we're here. We want to, keep opening up these doors to have these conversations to make us successful and, be able to launch a boat and not have to pay boat slips. And, it is expensive. We go down there and the parking is horrendous. So we want to be successful. We want to not only get the people educated on the coastlines and be good stewards, but we also want to get them out in the ocean and do whale watching. Like I said, fish, the ocean. Thank you.
Great, thank you all so much. And with that, we'll move into the council discussion. I really just want to say thank you both so much for presenting and for all of the work going into these reports. It's a really important part of the process of having these check-ins, seeing, where we're at, what's working, and then obviously where we need to move forward, particularly, today when we're looking at the next 5 years with the strategic plan and how both of those, all three of the efforts will move forward. So with that, I'll just turn to other council members. Please.
Yeah, I would definitely second your points, Katie, around it's great to hear about the progress that's being made, and there's more work ahead of us, but I think we're headed in the right direction. For item 7A, I was really happy to hear, at least in the verbal comments, about expanded language access. I do think as we keep making these references about providing accessible information or accessible informational and technical resources, that language access is a huge part of that. And would love to see and continue to see more diverse engagement. And I think not being able to read the materials or follow the meeting is a big part of that. So I'd be curious to know, are there specific actions? I know a bigger part of that is linked to funding to do that work, but would love to know how we're really going to push that item forward.
I was just going to agree with you.
Yeah, we fully agree. We think this is a real area of needed growth for this council. It is, expensive to take these steps, and it's really important. So I think over the next year, we're going to identify some near-term priorities. What are the minimum things we can do as a first step to really start to address this critical need. If we're trying to reach everyone in California, we need to improve the ways in which we're communicating.
Great, thank you. Just no? Well, okay, again, thank you both so much. And with that, we will move on to item 8, which is another action item for the consideration and approval of disbursement of funds for offshore wind research and monitoring. So please take it away.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm happy to be here today. Kel, I'll take the next slide, please. Thank you. California is committed to achieving carbon neutrality by 2045 as part of its broader efforts to address climate change. Reaching this clean energy target will require a diverse energy portfolio that includes offshore wind, with current planning goals of 5 gigawatts by 2030 and 25 gigawatts by 2045. In June 2023, the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management executed 5 offshore wind leases in federal waters 20 miles off the California coast, 2 off the coast of Humboldt Bay in the northern coast, and 3 off of the coast of Morro Bay in central California. These lease areas may produce 4.6 megawatts and are currently developing their construction and operations plans. Next slide, please. California's marine environment presents unique characteristics that distinguish it from other offshore wind development areas. For instance, seasonal upwelling supports exceptionally productive and diverse ecosystems. Additionally, the continental shelf drops off steeply into deep waters close to shore, making traditional fixed foundations infeasible. Higher and more consistent winds are also located farther offshore. In the California lease areas, water depths are more than 1,500 feet, and so therefore will require floating substructures. Floating offshore wind at the commercial scale proposed for California does not yet exist, and therefore it will introduce novel structures, mooring systems, and operational considerations that are still emerging technology and have associated knowledge gaps. Next slide, please. OPC has made a series of targeted investments of over more than $3 million over the last few years to help fill knowledge gaps and supplement offshore wind planning. These projects develop key tools to inform site suitability and responsible offshore wind development, including habitat maps, scientific models, and cultural resource inventories. Development of comprehensive environmental monitoring guidance is still ongoing and will inform the work proposed here today. However, despite these investments, additional work will still be required to develop specific monitoring standards and protocols and further assessment and monitoring of baseline conditions. Next slide, please. Early on, a cross-sector forum for addressing potential environmental impacts of offshore wind development was recognized as essential for coordinating efforts across agencies, leaseholders, and the scientific community. OPC worked with our state agency partners to scope a very early straw person that informed our process going forward. In fall of 2024, OPC initiated targeted stakeholder outreach on what the purpose and structure of a West Coast Science Collaborative for Offshore Wind, or the WCSC, could be, engaging federal agencies, state agencies from California, Oregon, and Washington, industry representatives, and early consultation with California Native American tribes. This was followed by a planning process this past summer and fall that included expanded interagency coordination, tribal roundtables, and formal consultation. Next slide, please. The feedback we received during the initial scoping and planning efforts directly shaped the draft blueprint for building a West Coast Science Collaborative for Offshore Wind, which is an exhibit as part of this item today. This blueprint lays out the structure and the initial activities of the WCSC. The organizational structure includes steering and coordination committees and topical subcommittees that bring together a diverse group of partners, including federal and West Coast agencies, California Native American tribes, offshore wind developers, fishing communities, environmental organizations, and academic researchers. The WCSC's initial work will focus on 3 key areas: creating standardized monitoring protocols, establishing clear scope and work plans for our fisheries and tribal cultural resources subcommittees, and building a roadmap for long-term sustainability. Next slide, please. The project before you today will build upon existing offshore wind planning efforts by providing both competitive and discretionary funding to advance critical scientific needs. I want to take a moment and note that we are very clear-eyed about the current perspective of the federal government on offshore wind. However, these investments are a win-win because they are advancing foundational science that is necessary if or when offshore wind priorities accelerate again, and will provide essential data that will improve our understanding of ocean and coastal ecosystem conditions more broadly. This is a no-regrets investment, despite where the federal government is on wind currently. The science we will be advancing includes, but is not limited to, understanding of how offshore wind infrastructure might affect important species like marine mammals, seabirds, and fish, as well as sensitive habitats. We're prioritizing targeted baseline data collection, which means strategic sampling in areas where we currently lack information, either from lack of monitoring or for undersampled seasons. It's important to note that our specific monitoring and research priorities aren't finalized, and they'll be refined through a competitive solicitation process that ensures we're funding the most impactful work. Next slide, please. The launch of the WCSC will start with a collaborative partnership between OPC and California Sea Grant. California Sea Grant has an established, highly respected process for administering working groups and competitive solicitation related to science needs for coastal and ocean resource management. California Sea Grant is experienced at convening and facilitating large groups, synthesizing complex scientific information, and administering peer review processes. OPC staff will lead the overall facilitation and launch of the WCSC, providing strategic direction and oversight. California Sea Grant will administer both discretionary grants, a competitive funding process, and handle all the post-award grant administration, including progress reporting and financial accounting. Next slide, please. Public comment, here's the anticipated project timeline. A public comment period on the draft blueprint will be released in January and is anticipated to close in March. OPC will revise the blueprint as appropriate based on that public feedback. OPC plans to launch the WCSC late next spring following the public comment period, and we anticipate releasing a competitive request for proposals next fall and bringing selected projects to the March 2027 council meeting. Next slide. And so with that, I request authorization to disperse up to $3 million to California Sea Grant to support responsible offshore wind development by establishing the West Coast Science Collaborative for offshore wind and providing competitive and discretionary funding to address knowledge gaps and priority science needs. Next slide. And with that, thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions after public comment.
Wonderful, thank you. So at this time, would open up public comment on item 8, and it looks like we've got a couple speakers in the room, so please.
Good afternoon, Carla Garibay Garcia with Monterey Bay Aquarium. We support Action Item 8's recommendation to disperse $3 million to California Sea Grant to support the establishment of the West Coast Science Collaborative to ensure responsible offshore wind development, and we look forward to collaborating with OPC and Sea Grant as the Science Collaborative comes together. The aquarium has long advocated for environmentally responsible offshore wind, and we've spent a significant amount of time thinking through what a science entity on the West Coast could look like. We really appreciate OPC staff's thoughtfulness in drafting the blueprint and their receptiveness to our input along the way. We support California Native American tribes as voting members and would like OPC to consider the value that environmental nonprofits would bring as voting members as well. Overall, we see the blueprint as a good starting point, and we look forward to providing detailed written feedback in the weeks to come. Thank you.
Hello there, Laura Dehan, Environment California Research and Policy Center Director. And I also wanted to state our support, our strong support for this item and for the disbursement of the funds to create the West Coast Science Entity. Environment California was one of the groups that sponsored AB 525 to help get California to set goals for responsible offshore wind, and a key part of that bill was making sure that we do it the right way, that we evaluate potential risks and mitigate for them and prevent them where possible. And so we think that an entity like this will be critical to make sure we're using the best available science as we embark on this new industry, to catch the wind, to replace the dirty power that we're dependent on today with clean energy. And so thank you, and we look forward to continuing to engage as the blueprint's finalized. So thank you.
Thank you. Sarah, any public commenters on the Zoom?
We have 7 commenters in the queue. Our first commenter is Irene Gutierrez, followed by Sylvia Rowan. Irene, you have the floor.
Great. Thank you so much for this opportunity to comment. I'm Irene Gutierrez, a senior attorney with the Natural Resources Defense Council. We support responsible offshore wind development and believe that a West Coast Science Collaborative is an important part of understanding the impacts of offshore wind development and managing those impacts. So we're really excited to see OPC moving forward with dispersing funding and putting together a blueprint for the Science Collaborative, and are really appreciative to staff and council members for all their work in putting this together. We especially appreciate that the blueprint recognizes the need for developing additional data, developing best management practices, and doing all of that before construction on offshore wind begins. The California current ecosystem, as you all know, is rich, vibrant, and really important to protect and manage well. I would like to respectfully request that OPC consider allowing NGOs to have voting rights on the steering committee. NGOs have a lot of scientific, legal, and practical expertise in marine and coastal management, and also represent tens of millions of members in the state who care about healthy marine environments. And I'd also note that in other settings like the East Coast RWSC, ENGOs have a role in decision-making bodies. But with that said, we really thank you for moving forward this important work, and look forward to working together on developments over the next few months. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Sylvia Royen, followed by Sarah Hutto. Sylvia, you have the floor.
Hi, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Hi, my name is Sylvia Van Royen. I am a GIS and policy analyst for Humboldt Waterkeeper. And I just wanted to start off by expressing my support for this funding. OPC has been doing some great work on offshore wind, and would be great to see that continued through the West Coast Science Collaborative. I particularly appreciate some of the comprehensive goals that were outlined in this blueprint, such as identifying effective mitigation measures and developing adaptive management strategies, assessing project level and cumulative impacts, and regional coordination of monitoring and research. Those are all going to be integral to responsibly deploying offshore wind. That said, I do have several recommendations that I believe would strengthen the blueprint considerably. First, I'd like to suggest the release of a public-facing report that synthesizes baseline monitoring data prior to construction, in addition to the one proposed for release after construction. Secondly, requiring that monitoring funded through OPC be shared with the public through existing geoportals would leverage established platforms to maximize the accessibility of this data. Beyond OPC-funded efforts, I also encourage the Council to consistently advocate for public sharing of any research or monitoring conducted by other entities in support of California's offshore wind goals. And I also urge the Council to consider allowing environmental nonprofits to have voting rights on the steering committee. Environmental nonprofits have a lot of scientific, legal, and practical expertise on the marine environment and protected species that I think would greatly enhance the committee's effectiveness as voting members. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Sarah Hutto, followed by Chris Voss. Sarah, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, council members, and thank you for the opportunity to comment on the disbursement of funds for offshore wind monitoring and research. My name is Sarah Hutto, and I'm here representing the California Marine Sanctuary Foundation in support of this disbursement. I first, though, want to applaud OPC and your really incredible staff on the investment, the commitment, and the leadership required to even get to where we are today. Under OPC's leadership for nearly 2 years, CMSF has led an independent, transparent, and science-based effort to develop environmental monitoring guidance for California's emerging offshore wind industry. We've done this by gathering and analyzing the expertise of over 200 subject matter experts. We're really grateful to OPC for your leadership throughout this process and in ensuring that California is prepared for responsible wind energy. We are encouraged by and supportive of OPC's draft blueprint for building a West Coast Science Collaborative as a critical next step in ensuring that the state builds this robust science foundation that is really necessary to responsibly develop offshore wind. We support an independent and objective entity that engages diverse expertise as well as impacted and interested communities and stakeholders to build from our work with the state thus far, addressing the most critical next steps that our scientific working groups have identified during the development of this environmental monitoring guidance. So thank you. We've enjoyed working with OPC on this, and we look forward to continuing this important work in partnership with you all.
Our next speaker is Chris Voss, followed by Luis Nooner. Chris, you have the floor.
Good afternoon again, Chris Voss. I'd like to speak to the notion that the commercial, I was just part of the 2-year process that the Coastal Commission supported around the 7C working group, where the fishermen engaged with offshore wind entities in an effort to avoid, minimize, and mitigate the impacts offshore wind's going to have on fishermen and fishing communities. And one of the concerns that was often raised was the impacts that site surveys have on fish populations and fish stocks. And it could be just that the surveying process scares the fish away and then reduces the opportunity to catch those fish in that space. And then in addition to that, I think there's a strong need to get a good handle on the cost this electricity is going to be to ratepayers. We still, with so much uncertainty around the ultimate build out and deployment of these large turbines in a really, really deep water, there's a great deal of uncertainty about what the cost will be down the road in relationship to other carbon-free alternatives. And so I think there needs to be a strong analysis done that weighs the cost benefit of offshore wind versus other carbon-free alternatives that would be less expensive and may produce similar amounts of electricity. So I just want to emphasize, I believe that is important to get a handle on so that we don't get a big surprise down the road in California with exceedingly expensive electricity that the people of the state of California will be obligated to pay for. All right, thank you.
Our next speaker is Luis Nooner, followed by Richard Sadowski. Luis, you have the floor.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. My name is Luis Neuner. I'm speaking today on behalf of the Core Hub, a program of the Humboldt Area Foundation on the North Coast. I'm commenting in support of item 8, which would provide additional funding for the work related to the West Coast Science Collaborative. We recognize the threat that climate change poses to vulnerable communities, cultural resources, and the environment. And as we pursue the state's decarbonization goals, we must ensure a responsible renewable energy transition that minimizes impacts to ecosystems and maximizes benefits. Currently, many concerns about the offshore wind cluster center on unanswered environmental questions and the need for a stronger understanding of potential impacts. This authorization will help address those gaps by supporting the collaborative and advancing our understanding of monitoring needs, strengthening partnerships with universities and host communities, and deepening collaboration with tribal nations. So tribal expertise informs the work from the start. It also helps provide much needed resources critical for meaningful participation across the region. Moving forward, we look forward to engaging in the draft blueprint to help ensure the entity is effective. Among other things, that will require centering tribal leadership, establishing strong research monitoring programs, securing ongoing funding, and creating pathways for local communities to participate in research. Finally, I just want to express my gratitude to the staff and the board for the continued effort. We very much look forward to making the most out of this sort of federal slowdown by doing the due diligence needed to get the science right. Yotoa, thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Richard Sadowski, followed by Bridget Mulkerin. Richard, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, OPC, Richard Sadowski, Homefront, EJ, Morro Bay. You know, there's a lot of resistance here locally in Morro Bay to the offshore wind farm proposal, where I'm actually in favor of it, and I support item 8, just so you know, we know that Homefront EJ supports OPC in this endeavor. One of the things that that would be a benefit is, like the previous speaker mentioned, from the fishing community, about having comparable data to other carbon-free sources and cost benefit. That would be helpful, because there's groups here that a lot of times their information isn't quite correct. Okay, and then I would like to make sure that, you know, you have these community benefit programs that we lace in monitoring with some of the local NGOs and local universities, and help fund some of the baseline data that we can do in this project. And one of the things that I would love to see is the NOAA PMEL project, where you measure ocean acidification and atmospheric carbon dioxide with these buoys out there. So I think that if we put something like that, then we could start getting comparable data and just use it as an opportunity to understand the health of our oceans. And I think that there's an urgency here that we need to be very conscious of what the new administration wants to do as far as opening up oil exploration out here. So I just want to make sure, bring that to the forefront. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Our next speaker is Bridget Mulkern, followed by Julia Chun. Bridget, you have the floor.
Good afternoon. My name is Bridget Mulcairn. I'm the Senior Manager for Climate Policy at the National Audubon Society's California office. As I've shared at OPC meetings in the past, Audubon's research shows that 2/3 of North American bird species are at risk of extinction due to climate change. And so we recognize that supporting birds means mitigating climate change and urgent decarbonization. And so therefore we support responsible offshore wind development as part of that solution. We strongly support the recommendation to allocate $3 million to California Sea Grant to establish the West Coast Science Collaborative for Responsible Offshore Wind Development. The National Audubon Society helped found and serve on the steering committee of the Regional Wildlife Science Collaborative on the East Coast, and commend its positive impact. We look forward to positive outcomes similarly in California and the broader West Coast through this collaborative. We also support scientific transparency through reporting of research findings and encourage robust baseline data research. Audubon looks forward to the opportunity to contribute our expertise and resources, such as we just updated our marine important bird areas along the California coast, and would definitely be willing to share those in support of these efforts. Those are also publicly available. We encourage the OPC to include both California Native American tribes and nonprofits, environmental nonprofits, as voting members of the collaborative. And we really thank you all so much for your work in developing the blueprint and standing up this collaborative. And we look forward to providing additional feedback in the coming weeks. And thank you for your thoughtful approach to ensure California offshore wind is developed responsibly.
Our next speaker is Julia Chun, followed by Janine Pfeiffer. Julia, you have the floor.
Good afternoon. I'm Julia Chun here with the California Coastal Protection Network, a unique advocacy organization dedicated to protecting California's greatest natural asset, our coastline for all generations. CCPN supports offshore wind to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions when projects are designed, planned, and sited to avoid negative impacts to marine life, coastal resources, and coastal communities, especially those of Native American tribes and constituents that have already borne disproportionate burdens from past pollution and industrial development. We strongly support the disbursement of $3 million to the California Sea Grant to support the establishment of the West Coast Science Collaborative to ensure responsible offshore wind development. We would like OPC to consider the value that environmental nonprofits would bring as voting members and our contributions to the process so far. We appreciate that OPC is recognizing the need to conduct baseline research and establish monitoring best management practices prior to the construction operation phase of offshore wind development. We look forward to continuing to engage and work with you as the West Coast Science Collaborative comes together. Thank you for your leadership and helping to ensure that offshore wind is approached responsibly.
Our next speaker is Janine Pfeiffer, followed by the final speaker, Marcel KG. Janine, you have the floor.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. My comments are rather technical, and they apply to pages 10 through 12 of the blueprint. I'm currently working with Trinidad Red Sharia. We are part of an intertribal working group for West Coast tribal cultural landscapes, and I just didn't see any reference to this federally funded initiative under BOEM and the Udall Foundation anywhere on pages 10 through 12. I did see that there is an inventory, tribal cultural resources inventory for North and Central Coast California Native American tribes being developed by the California Energy Commission. And I just wanted to note that hundreds of thousands of dollars have already been spent on doing exactly this through the Tribal Cultural Landscapes Program. And if folks at OPC or the California Energy Commission need additional information, I'm sure Dana Goodson over at the Udall Foundation or someone over at the Bureau of Energy Management would be happy to point to all the resources that have been developed for that and to know which tribes and tribal communities have already participated. Thank you.
The final speaker is Marcel KG. Marcel, you have the floor.
Can you hear me? Okay, hello, I'm Marcel Kagi. I'm co-founder of the Tribal Sacred Waters, Inc. And as I've been boating around the ocean front, I see a lot of unusable areas where a man-made reef or barriers to help the forest kelp guide do some forest restoration, and as well as making it a design so that the public can access like a pier system using the foundation of these windmills. And I see a lot of California coast that's unusable that could be turned in to enhance the sea life and create some habitats for them using these superstructures. I get it. I'm all for renewable energy, and I think it would be a good public project for all of us to enjoy, to be able to have the public be able to access like those piers back in the day when I grew up. We had the Oceanside Pier. It was like so far. It was so fun. And I sure miss those times. And I know our grandchildren would enjoy something if we could create something like that for them. Thank you.
Thank you to everyone who provided public comment. Now going to turn over to council member discussion and see if, and I see Councilmember Rocha's hand up, so please.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just trying to get clarity on sort of what is being asked of us today. I'm sorry, I'm having a little bit of trouble. So on one of the slides, the anticipated project timeline, I don't know if it helps to bring that up. But it sounds like the blueprint is going to go out for public comment. So we're not being asked to approve the blueprint today, correct?
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you. And then the $3 million that's being asked to go to California Sea Grant, that is then to initiate a competitive grant process to fund monitoring projects that have been identified through the effort that CMSF went through to get input, or to be determined?
That's correct. We are partnering with Sea Grant we would partner with Sea Grant to solicit priority science needs and fill information gaps, mostly through a competitive process. There may be a few needs for discretionary projects.
I would also note that some of the funding, and part of the reason we're sort of asking for it now, is the funding is to help support and launch the West Coast Science Collaborative, and for that there's going to be some honoraria for tribal government participation in it, which we're launching that spring. So the competitive science funding is going to come a little bit after we actually launch the Science Collaborative, but it's all one funding package.
And so that money to stand up the collaborative will also be run through Sea Grant as part of the $3 million request today?
Correct.
Okay. Is there any reason why that ask couldn't be brought back once because I just have a lot of questions about the blueprint myself, and I'm really interested to see what public comment and how that might be revised. So is there some way to bring that ask back separately? The funding needed to actually launch the collaborative?
I think the goal is to bring the final blueprint back to this council for approval. And the funding, the small amount of funding that would be a part of this larger approval today would really go to start identifying and bringing the right folks together to stand up the collaborative. If you would prefer that we pause on that piece, we can. But I think the majority of this funding is going to support the research needs.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're not approving sort of the blueprint as it stands and the composition of the collaborative.
We are not. We are daylighting and releasing the blueprint as a draft for further input and tribal consultation and revision, and hope to finalize and stand up this group in spring of, I guess, after our March council meeting of next year.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, so just to clarify, what's in front of the council today is the approval of the $3 million. And at a future meeting, we will have an opportunity again for the vote on the final version of the blueprint, as well as the selected projects for the grant funding again at a future meeting. So, great, thank you. And looking to others. If there's any further questions or comments, and if not, I would look for a motion.
I will move to adopt the proposed findings as recommended by staff and approve the disbursement of funds for offshore wind research and monitoring as described in the item.
Great. And a second?
I'll second.
Sarah, could you please take the roll call vote?
Katie Landau,
Yes.
Carl Larson,
Yes.
Alexis Jackson,
Yes.
and Megan Rocha.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Wonderful, thank you. So we're going to move on now to item number 9. We do not have a staff presentation prepared for this item, but we do have staff that are available to answer any questions if it is necessary. Item 9 is the consideration and approval of Proposition 4 emergency regulations. So this is a request to adopt the emergency regular package as authorized by the state legislature to implement Proposition 4, which is the climate bond that California voters approved in November 2024. And earlier this year, the California legislature adopted Assembly Bill 149, authorizing the development of the emergency regulations to adopt program guidelines and the selection criteria for that Prop for funding as it's being rolled out. So as part of the effort to comply with AB 149, OPC staff have developed the emergency regulation package implementing Prop 4 for approval by the council. So today what staff are seeking is approval of the regulations by the council and the authorization of the council chair, executive director, or deputy director to submit or make any necessary changes for approval of these regulations after we adopt today by the Office of Administrative Law. So just at this time, I just want to ask if there are any council members who want to remove this item from consent and bring it forward for discussion. And so, seeing none, it's approved, and we will move on to item 10. Thank you for all the work on that. So item 10 is the opportunity for any members of the public to provide public comment on non-agenda items. So we'll start in the room, and then we will go to any virtual public commenters. Please.
Good afternoon again, Chair Landau and members. Jennifer Fearing again, doing something a little different because this felt like a different week given the news that Secretary Crowfoot shared about Director Bonham's departure. So I just wanted to take an opportunity to publicly convey my personal and professional gratitude to Director Bonham for his many years of service, leadership, and unwavering commitment to California's natural resources and wildlife. His tenure has really been marked by courage, integrity, and profound dedication to this state, leaving a lasting impact on our community's coast and wildlife. And I know tomorrow that colleagues plan to convey similar sentiments at a Fish and Game Commission meeting, but since he's leaving at the end of the year, it feels right to lift up some of his the marine conservation results that have occurred in California, due in large part to Chuck navigating some of the most complex environmental challenges in California history during his long tenure. So I just wanted to lift up and name a few examples of the strides we've made in California under his leadership. We've protected seafloor habitats from bottom trawling, protected previously unmanaged forage species from directed commercial fishing. He's built trust with the California Native American tribes, completed the first decadal review of the Marine Protected Area Network, shone a light on the department's dire funding needs through the service-based budgeting process, ended the breeding of captive orcas, stopped federal efforts to authorize pelagic longline gear, transitioned swordfish drift gill nets to deep set buoy gear, removed dams to restore salmon on the Klamath River, established a new regulatory system aimed at preventing whale entanglements, helped ensure the appointment of the state's first conservation voice on the Pacific Fishery Management Council, authorized ropeless gear in the Dungeness crab fishery, and enacted legislation to end the shark and ray fin trade. And I'm going to sneak in historic beaver restoration since beavers can and do visit the coast. Chuck's legacy will live on in the many ways that CDFW's culture, approach, values, and outcomes have transformed during his tenure. And I just wanted to say on behalf of myself, Oceana, Monterey Bay Aquarium, Ocean Conservancy, and Pew Charitable Trust that we wish Chuck the very best as he steps into his next chapter and hope it brings him the same sense of fulfillment that he doubtlessly felt throughout his service to California, our people, and our wildlife. So I don't even know if he's listening, but it was important, I feel like, to use a public space to do what he would have encouraged me not to do, which is thank him publicly for all he's done. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm sure his ears are turning a little red without even knowing why right now. Sarah, do we have any public comment speakers on Zoom?
We have 3 commenters in the queue. Our first commenter is Eileen Boken. Eileen, you have the floor.
Eileen Boken, Coalition for San Francisco Neighborhoods, speaking on my own behalf, following up on my written submission, which included a link to an article on climate change in the Arctic as it relates to nitrogen fixation, also regarding a grant from the State Water Resources Control Board to fully fund a pilot project to install offshore desalination off the coast of Fort Bragg by Onika Technologies. The coalition recently sponsored a presentation of the Onica Technologies product on November 12th, as San Francisco is built out and would not be able to accommodate onshore desal. Also encouraging the Natural Resources Agency to support the Bay Delta Plan, as the voluntary agreement is not legally enforceable. Also opposing the renewal of sand mining leases in San Francisco Bay. And finally, the CSFN resolution regarding transferring of San Francisco's emergency firefighting water system, also known as AWAS, from the SFPUC back to the SF Fire Department, where it belongs, with design and engineering by SF DPW. When then Mayor Gavin Newsom transferred AWAS to the SFPUC on May 10, 2010, this was a major miscalculation which needs to be corrected. The 1906 earthquake issues of fire and insurance are here again today and have come full circle. Thank you.
The next speaker is Keith Rutzart, followed by the final speaker, Richard Sadowski. Keith, you have the floor.
Hello, this is Keith Rutzart with the Giant Kelp Restoration Project in Monterey. We recently demonstrated our urchin airlift at the documentary film Sequoias of the Sea in Pacific Grove, where over 500 people attended, and Mike Eckerle was a panelist. I asked our volunteer divers how they liked the movie, and the consensus opinion was, what is the point? Kelp restoration is still illegal. I'm glad to see the 2024 Prop 4 Emergency Regulations for Coastal Resiliency grant programs on the agenda. Like Josh Russo, who ended his crusade at 53 last Friday, I've come before the council seeking urgent action for kelp since May of 2019, back before COVID, when I had short, mostly blonde hair. The kelp crisis was urgent 6 years ago, and we could have halted the spread of urchins. It brings me no solace to tell you, we told you so. Our kelp in Monterey Bay is only 4% of baseline, and Carmel Bay is 57% better at 6.3%, as best we can tell, as high-resolution aerial surveys were stopped in 2016. The endangered southern sea otters, important apex predators, have stripped the kelp forests of invertebrates and are starving to death, but nobody has reported the sea otter population size since 2019. The future of Aquarius and Anywater dive shops is uncertain after the owners died in a plane crash. Bamboo Reef dive shops closed because it's sad to dive in an urchin barren. Tourists come to Monterey for the scenic beauty, which is now just open water. The commercial wharf has $50 million in deferred maintenance, but only collects $1 million in annual fishing revenue because the commercial fishers haven't enjoyed a decent squid harvest in 4 years. A decade after the kelp crisis started, there is no longer an emergency. You can turn off the lights and sirens. Our ocean died. This is a recovery. The cost for Californians will continue to escalate until there is both funding and permission. Thank you.
And the final speaker is Richard Sadowski. Richard, you have the floor.
Hello, Richard Sadowski, Homefront EJ. I just wanted to thank you guys so much and the courageous and the courageous actions that you're taking in these times that we live in. And just a note to continue to support monitoring and ocean science through our universities like Cal Poly's Carbon Lab and Cuesta College. And I just want to give another plug for the excellent California College Core program. Our project, we've had 14 students come through our project, and it's such an encouragement to work with these young people, and and I just want to thank you, OPC, for all your staff and the council for all that you do, and wish you all a great holiday season. Bye.
Great, thank you all. And a good note to end on. So moving on to item 11, which is the close-in arrangements for next year's meetings. So the next council meeting is scheduled for Monday, March 23rd, 2026, here at the CNRA Auditorium, and there will also be Zoom participation available. And anyone who is interested can find all of the 2026 meeting dates are on the council meeting webpage. And for those that are planning their calendars ahead, that will be June 16th, September 22nd, and December 8th, 2026. And just before we wrap up, as you know, was shared by Executive Director Eckerle at the beginning of the meeting, we would just like to adjourn today in the memory of Joshua Russo, recognizing his warmth, passion, and dedication that several people have spoken to today, and his dedication to the coast and the ocean. And with that, council is now adjourned, and have a wonderful rest of the year and happy 2026. So, thank you.